We on and recording? All right. So our first item up, I see we have our presenter here. Ryan Torres, Battery Park City Authority, giving us the Parks Operations Spring Preview. So take it away. Do we have a presentation?
Yes. Oh, we have another.
Oh, all right.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's
That's
okay.
good. We just decided to start without you, but we haven't really started yet.
Please know that the elevator stopped on 20. I made the mistake of getting out and it refused to go up.
Wow.
So there I was.
Did you take the stairs the next one?
No, you can't. You're trapped in there.
Oh, that's
So I just hung out.
unfortunate.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me again. I do love my annual homage to visiting you guys and just giving you guys a sneak peek about what's to come in parks operations and also just kind of chat a little bit about what's happening now, what's going to happen. Some things that I think we all maybe notice that's happening, so just acknowledge those, you know, in those moments as well. And of course, answer any questions, not just today, but if you ever need anything, 75 Battery Place or anyone on my team will make sure I get the message. So thanks for having me. Oh, I got it. Okay, great. So I'm just going to chat a little bit about parks operations and who we are. As you know, or hopefully as you know by now, I'm the Vice President of Parks Operations. We have 3 departments that make up the whole of the parks operations. So we'll just go through that in case anybody's new to the community or somebody's not aware. We're going to look back a little bit into 2024 and just some of the highlights for me. And I'm definitely missing a lot, but just some of the highlights for me. Going to look ahead a little bit. You know, just talk how excited, not just myself, but the team is for the reopening of Wagner Park. Some things that are on our radar that I have answers for and some things I don't, but we can still talk about it. I want to talk about compost because we have some new upgrades, not just with the DSNY stuff, but aside from all of that. So I wanted to just take the time to talk about that. Of course, I can't, oh man, I'm realizing there's an extra space, so I apologize here. Talk a little bit about zero waste in our wildlife, because these are just some of the things that are in our day-to-day operations, and then how we can keep in touch. Any questions are welcome. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And so just a couple of pictures of our team at work out there removing the snow. It's like in the jog runs and along the Esplanade. In the center there is a new moth BioBlitz, which I'll briefly talk about, that we performed. Yeah, it was great, actually. It
Is
took
it a good way to get rid of them or to have them come? I don't know.
Yeah, so we definitely want them.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we definitely want them. And so we just made these very specific traps, not to harm them, but to be able to identify them. As you'll see in some of our looking backs, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but we were able to identify 22 moths in Battery Park City that weren't identified in iNaturalist. I'm not saying we uncovered a prehistoric, non-existing thing, but in this iNaturalist app, which is worldwide, they weren't identified in Park City. They were really successful. So, you know, of course, our wash downs and just some of our masonry team. It is warm in this building, right? Right? We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Again, just, you know, just kind of doing our day-to-day work. We did some repairs on the basketball courts this past summer to kind of get some of those cracks so that people can play basketball the way that it's meant to be. Cat on the side, you probably see outside daily, just washing things down, cleaning some of the water features and snow, recycling, you know, 365, right?
Right, it's always.
As always. And so again, there's 3 departments that make up the Parks Operations Division. One of the departments is the Maintenance Department. This is the staff that's largely consists of about 40 or so folks. And they're the ones that kind of keep the cleanliness and the safety of all of this stuff, right? If you will, that's in Battery Park City. So we're talking structures like benches, play equipment, water fountains, water features. hardscapes, whether that's the dog runs, playgrounds, pavers, fixtures. So we're doing all the light poles, the sinks, the faucet, the hand dryers. We're doing the power washing, the preventative and the reactive maintenance to ensure that things are safe and clean. We're opening and closing the restrooms. We're opening and closing, sometimes with the help of Ally, thank you, Pat, the Irish Hunger Memorial. And we're also cleaning those community spaces and restrooms. So 200 Rector, 6 River Terrace, and any of the other spaces that BPCA manages. We also oversee the 2 bridges, the 2 access points, at least for the highway, to get across safely, right? To be honest, that highway, West Thames Bridge and Tribeca Bridge. It's worth noting that I don't maintain the operations of the Tribeca Bridge. So if it's out, that's a collaboration between me and the school, but I do maintain the cleanliness and how it looks. The West Thames Bridge, though, is different. So if that's out, you can give me a call and we'll take care of that. And of course, the cleanliness, both the east and the west side. So we kind of, if the stairs on the east side, you can still call me. We will go. And then, of course, the all important and, ever important, I love talking about, but nobody likes hearing the waste management, but it is an important part of what we do, the over 300 trash cans, 50 recycling cans, and all the things that we have for people to, throw their stuff out are collected daily, sometimes twice in the summertime. So again, that's all part of just a smattering of what the maintenance department is in charge of. The horticulture team, which we probably all know and love as well, they're taking care of all of the park areas, the landscapes, the trees, the bulbs, the flowers, the compost. And so we have about 12 listed here, soon to be 13, right? Because Wagner will be reopened again, where the horticulture team, which is about 20, they're about half the size of the maintenance team. They're overseeing the park and street trees, the compost, the plantings, perennials, tree shrubs, bulbs, whatever it is that we're planting, the mulching, the weeding, the hanging baskets on South End Avenue. That's largely from the horticulture team. And then our third department, which is a little bit smaller and probably not as public facing, but equally as important because they're kind of behind the scenes, is our shared service department. And so what they're doing is they're managing the atrium, which is the coming and goings of the rest of the team, which is no easy feat. They're dealing with the shipping and the receiving. As you can imagine, there's lots of that, to keep the parks looking good and the pavers coming in and all that stuff. They're also dealing with the facilities maintenance, so any of the service contracts we have, elevators, burglar alarms, things of that nature. They also do a lot of the coordination between other departments, such as parks programming or the design and construction team. So rather than have all the directors in one meeting, just the director of shared services might go, and then they'll distribute the information to the others just to make things a little more efficient. Also in our director of shared services wheelhouse is she's our director of safety. So she makes sure that, all of our federal, state and city and BPCA rules for safety are in compliance. And then of course assist with the preparedness and response in the event of an emergency, both from like a warehouse perspective, but also from a safety perspective. So that is a hopefully quick enough recap of what Parks Operations is and how we kind of operate to keep Battery Park City looking as it does. Any questions so far? You can just throw them out there. I'm just going to keep going, but if you have a question, just feel free to stop me. And so looking back again, just some of my highlights, even though this is definitely not an exhaustive list because the amount that we do and the team does is pretty remarkable. We have our third year of pumpkin composting. So we were able to collect more than 1,200 pounds of compost this year. So each year keeps going up and up. Yeah, it's fun to see, them kind of thrown into these bins. We of course do our holiday tree chipping, which is on its what feels like millionth year. And so that continues to be a huge success and a help because all of those chipped trees end up in the compost or in some other fashion helping Battery Park City landscapes. So more than 1,700 trees collected there, which is pretty average for what we do. We did partner with the Javits Center and the American Kennel Club this year, which is a little outside of Battery Park City, but it was exciting for us. They had a Meet the Breeds event where the Javits Center, which is also a New York State agency, they had this Meet the Breeds event. And so we collected the dog waste from that event and we composted it in our dog waste compost bin, which is a separate, from the food waste compost. So that was kind of exciting for me. We did create a biodiversity working group so that we can really think about the data that we're collecting and how we're planting the native plants and who that's inviting and stuff. Yes.
Who are members of the working group?
So these working groups are
Internal.
staff. Yeah, they are staff. And so I think, we're there, especially the biodiversity working group that's weeks, months old. So let's see where it goes. But right now it's largely the horticulture staff, and then we'll incorporate some of the maintenance staff. So again, collecting data, analyzing it, helping to shape decisions to make sure that, the birds and the butterflies and the
That makes
bees.
sense.
all
If
have-
you ever branch out, and I throw this out, not knowing and not being one, look at Battery Park City Gardeners,
Yeah.
They would
Liberty
love
Garden.
to learn some, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They would love to learn, I would assume, if and when it's.
Yeah, it's actually, thank you. It's a great flag because Dave, the director of horticulture, meets with them regularly. Brendan, who's our compost coordinator, meets with them regularly. It just feels like it would make sense for this team to meet them to just
Yeah.
see what they,
Either add or question or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. The waste working group isn't so new. We had two different groups for the last couple of years, dog waste composting and the zero waste. We just kind of merged them because it's all under the world of diverting waste from the landfill in whatever form that is. So looking forward to seeing some of the projects that they're going to come up with that will work towards some of the larger BPCA goals. We did conduct a bunch of bio blitzes. We did a lot of these internally, but in 2025, we're hoping to maybe talk about them a little bit more. As these bio blitzes are, probably should have looked at the definition, so I felt a little bit more,
Anyway,
anyway.
I asked you what they were.
Yeah, a bio blitz is a timed, meaning there's a start and an end period of time where you decide that you're going to look for wildlife. So, in the later months, they have a moth bio blitz, like a national moth month. So we might do a moth bio blitz during then, right?
Mhm.
There's a pollinator week. So we'll just identify everything. And by doing these bio blitzes, not only does it get us just focused on, okay, let's just take the time to do this, but we're hoping to use it as a way to incorporate some education, some communication, how anybody can get involved. We use an
Sounds
app.
fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It is fun because you're literally looking for a ladybug or just seeing what you see,
Yeah.
looking at a picture. You don't have
Job
to.
with the definition, by the way.
Not all is lost. The team, if they're watching, will be proud. So anyway, looking forward to really kind of talking more about that in the upcoming year, but we did do a lot of them last year internally just to get our brain power working on how we would do it. We planted 8 new native trees, in some of the spots where we needed some. We added some sand to the playground. We identified 22 new moth species. Probably should have coupled that with the bio blitz in the park, which was really exciting. So just some of the fun things for me in 2022. Looking ahead, so we're really excited about the Wagner Park reopening. At least, the parks operations team is, right? We're just chomping at the bit to get in there and see what's going on. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So reminder, our hours of operations do change in the summer months. So starting on May 1 up until October 31st, our later shift starts later. So currently, without getting into the shifts, currently we're on site from 7:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. Starting May 1st, we'll be here 7:30 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. So that's when the restrooms and the Irish Hunger Memorial stay open later. And then back November 1, we kick it back down to 7:30. So that'll start on May 1st. You'll also start to see a lot more parks operations team as we bring in our seasonal staff to help us with the uptick of people being outside. Well over 45,000 bulbs were planted last fall, which is in line, which makes for a really fun spring. So keep your eyes out, not just now, but they're coming, they're there. The lawns will be opening in the upcoming weeks. We usually open those in April. So, we have been continuing like we have in the last couple of years where we've closed some and left some open, which I think almost feels like normal, but
Yeah.
that wasn't the norm, right?
Right,
We
no,
shut
right.
them down.
At the same
Completely,
time,
yeah.
so now are they gonna open staggeredly or in a staggered fashion also or no?
Nope, whatever's closed will be open. I mean, it might take a day or two because it takes the team a day or two to physically get them down and roll them up, but it all happens at once. There's nothing, that I foresee needing to stay closed for a long period of time. We close them specifically to give them a break, so yes, we will open them. Uh, Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry.
When?
When are the Wagner Park lawns being done?
When are the lawns being done? Like planned?
Plantation of their opening, yes.
Yeah, so the lawn will be planted well before it opens, right? To give that establishment, time. I think the last time I spoke, it was probably sometime in April or so, which is around the planting season, right? So when Wagner opens, the lawn will be there, right? And all of that planting will have happened behind the construction, right?
Is that true of the bulbs as well?
That is not true of the bulbs. That we'll have to do in the fall because we kind of missed that window. Ball field conversions, which actually I kept on here, but I'm pretty sure that happened today. Confirmed with my team, but that's where we switched the ball fields from soccer to baseball, right? And so really what that looks like is just a bunch of poles that used to be on the edge are now in the middle and so on and so forth. We're gonna continue planting native plants in the landscapes, our hanging baskets on South End Avenue, which hopefully everybody still enjoys as much as, as much as we did when we started. Yeah. So spring will come and it will happen. And so those two will come back out. Earth Month is really exciting, not just for our team, but for, I think the community in general, not just because of our sustainability, goals and just how we feel, but we really do try to have some really fun events. I'm sure Nick and Becky will do a great job in talking about what all those are coming, but my team does enjoy being, part of it and leading some of them. I Love My Park Day is a New York State initiative where we, New York State entities encourage people to volunteer. That's the first Saturday in May. Right now, we're kind of working on a partnership with the school right next door to us.
276. Yeah.
Yep, 276, sorry. And so, working that out, but maybe have some room for some other volunteers. So, stay tuned for more information. And then again, those BioBlitz, looking ahead, looking forward to just some of the more outward facing where, either community members or passerbyers, whether you can do it for a minute or you can do it for a week, right? There's a big city nature challenge in April. It's a global wide event, but New York City parks, not like New York City parks, different parks have come up with like their own internal competition to see who can get the most identifications. Battery Park City, we keep inching up, but we're not there yet. So more information about that to come. The more identifications on the app in this period of time in April, which again, I can share more details, the higher we'll raise. I am determined to get Battery Park City Authority on the top of the parks of the city, somehow or another. So really, I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
And so, the reopening of Wagner Park, as you all are really well aware, we're looking forward to that this summer. It's been a while since we've gotten a chance to, touch it and care for it. The Parks Operations team has been, over those two pictures on the right, has been kind of coming in and out so that they get a chance to see what it's like now, what it's like in a few weeks, what it's like as we get closer, and just really getting a chance to see some of that underbelly of it. So that's been really fun. Currently, we're talking about some transition planning, right? So learning about the new features, how is the team going to maintain those things? That encompasses some upcoming training. Not that the concepts are any different, right? We're gonna have irrigation, we're gonna have planting, we're gonna have pavers, like that's all gonna be the same. Some of it is gonna look a little bit differently, and so we're just making sure that our team is fully aware of these different, a different paver and that they're comfortable with it to ensure that we're keeping it to the status that we all expect Battery Park City to be. And then these fun tours, fun yet working tours that we've been doing with the design and construction team kind of behind the scenes.
What is the setup of the new Wagner Park being done by the contractors for that versus integrating the workers from Battery Park City Authority who are gonna be taking care of it later?
Yeah, so we're getting the information, but the contractors are doing all the work. So they're gonna be doing the planting and installation of the pavers, bless you. But the director of horticulture has all the planting plans, that's been shared with the horticulture team. There's been a couple of back and forths with some specifications on one thing or another, and we've kind of tweaked. So the Parks Operations team has, gotten all those facts. And yes, maybe we're not touching it, but we have seen a lot of it, and we're getting that input to be able to tweak it. But ultimately, the contractor is going to.
I wonder if they had any input as well, besides just the training, if they had any more ownership than that.
Yeah, I mean, we were also involved when we were talking about what we were gonna put in, right? However many years ago that was, right? And so, yeah, it's whatever year that was, right? So it's kind of like there was this two-part, right? It's like, hey, Ryan and team, we're gonna build a new park in a couple of years or something. Like, what are the things we must have? What's the type of irrigation features you want? What are the problems you're having? What can we do better? So we were part of those conversations originally as well.
That's good.
Yeah, and even some different moments here, I have a couple of renderings as, I don't have a lot of the Wagner pictures, it's still under construction. But even here on the right, that's actually Princess, one of our supervisors from the maintenance team. We were trialing some different cleaning products, right? And so they really wanted to make sure that that it was effective and stuff. And so they brought us, not all of us, but some of us in to really kind of test a couple of different sections to see what was most effective. Here we're using the power washer, which is like a technique that we would normally use just to make sure that we're not doing anything. So I think Betty will, yeah, we're involved in everything, but they're definitely looping us in. So kind of gets us excited. Yeah, gets us excited. Reopening that, some more just, the renderings, which I think we've all kind of seen 100 times, but, the horticulturists can't wait to get their hands dirty. The maintenance team can't wait to see if they're gonna be able to drive around the pass, but we're still not sure, right? So it's all interesting, yes.
Is that puree, the top one?
Yeah, on the left side is Puree, right? So we're gonna have that kind of like the thing over the inlet, right? And that's eco concrete, right? Where the tide is gonna come up, and we're gonna do some plantings in there to encourage marine life, which will be really interesting. Something new.
And that's not as rough there as it is over by Pier 25, or
Yeah.
26.
Yeah, no, definitely not as rough. Although that inlet has its fair share of action, don't get me wrong. I've seen lots of things come and go out of there, but not nearly as rough. So I think it's gonna be successful. We're excited about that, being able to bring that in. And then I was thinking something, but
I'm sorry.
no, that's, you should definitely, ask questions. I can't think, but anyway, I was gonna say, it's been a really long time since Battery Park City has had a new park, right? I think Teardrop was probably the last time, and so we've got a bunch of people on our team, on the Parks Operations team that were here. I mean, honestly, we've got, Rob Maggi, who's the Director of Maintenance, just got 25 years here. So he was here when almost all of it was built, right? He, tells me stories about us having a maintenance yard where your building now sits, kind of thing. But anyway, there's a challenge and there's like a scariness to it, but there's also an excitement about it. And so my team's really embracing both of those sides. And then especially for some of the newer staff who probably assume they'll never see something like this, right? And now they're gonna see lots of it over the next couple of years.
We have a
Yeah,
question
I'm sorry.
from Tammy online.
Oh,
Tammy?
hi Tammy, how are you?
Good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a question when we're looking at this picture of that inlet in between Wagner and Pier A. The photo, there's, we all know the waters of New York City. The water of New York City doesn't normally look like a pool. Did you guys do any work to the bottom of the inlet channel area in between Pier A and Wagner for dredging or resurfacing in water?
Yeah, in the photo, that's more of a rendering than a photo, obviously, and maybe, yeah, they definitely highlighted it a little bit more than it looks. Um,
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. As far as dredging and cleaning, I'm not sure. There must have been something because we're installing that eco concrete, right? In those
Mhm.
areas, and I can find out and definitely get back to you on that one.
That'd be awesome because I don't remember that in any of the dialogues and conversations. And yeah, I'm sure that the photo takes some liberties, but wow, that'd be awesome if it was a pool like that. But you know,
Right.
that's not what nature
I
provides
don't
us.
grow in it though.
Right,
That's like a lot of chlorine to keep it back on.
that's right, that's right.
That's right.
And then we're also gonna be removing some of that riprap, like those stones that were kind of there, so obviously that will do some cleaning up, and so, yeah, the inlet will be used in a really different way now, whereas before I was just kind of making sure there wasn't too much trash kind of getting accumulated, which of course I'll still do, but it'll be nice to see some growth and wildlife in there. The biodiversity team, I'm sure will love it as well.
And then I had a second question. Not only it relates to both the picture that you showed, and then if you can go back one slide about it looked like there were step down tiers on the side of Wagner that's behind the new quote pavilion area in the corner there. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that is where, because I don't,
I don't remember it, right? I don't remember being there unless,
that
I'm
it,
sorry, can you point, I'm not sure where we're talking.
where is that space? Because it
That's
almost
also-
looks, it looks different in the rendering if that's the space that's the same as the space on the other top right, just taken from a different angle, you know, kind of.
it's the real biodiversity things out there.
Mhm.
Is that is that the biodiversity dock at the far end? Is this the plantings which look different than the last picture? Is it really truly a 2 to 3 step down level? And if so, how does maintenance and parks team access that area? And what's the thought process on the plantings that are there? Obviously, I'm sure salt tolerant, duh. But you know, how is that? It doesn't, I'm sure it's not accessible to people as in public, but how does out of curiosity, does the team do that? And is that the same space, which it sort of looks like it is, that was shown in the other slide, which was top left in the next one?
Yep, that is a picture of the inlet. So we are talking about the same area. And again, the renderings, I don't think we update it every time. We maybe tweak some things. So, but the plantings that's going to be in the inlet, in that eco concrete is meant to be not just salt tolerant, submergible, right? And so you kind of really, they're meant to be completely submerged by this harsh environment, if you will. And then, yeah, how those are maintained, the theory is that it's minimally, right? Because we're not gonna have our team, you know, harness on the railings and kind of get over there. And if we need to partner with maybe some contractors that do that kind of specialization in that kind of work, maybe that's the route that we go. But really, it's going to be planted in a way that is meant for that kind of environment, and it's kind of self-sustaining, you know, and it's kind of growing in its own way. And we're not pruning it, we're not having to cut it down or anything along those lines.
And I guess what I don't remember is the giant open cement area
Yeah.
being there,
Yeah,
and
the
whereas
walkway.
now we have all those little gardens and things like that along the side. This
Mhm.
image,
And then
so I'm just trying to understand what's real and what's not, because I don't think the public really knows either. So if you can
Yeah.
go to the next slide, it's, you know, this area shows a big giant open concrete area And when you look at the next slide, it's
More
hard to
filled in.
tell.
Well, it's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
Right, yeah, it's definitely hard to tell. Again, these are renderings that are probably a couple of years old because, you know, we didn't update the renderings every single time we made some changes. But I do see, again, Tammy, I can get back to you. I don't want to, you know, misspeak on Gwen's behalf, right? I don't want her texting me after this. But I do see what you're talking about in this particular one where there's the LA that meets with the South Esplanade, right? That's what we're talking about? That's it.
Yeah, looks like a
Yep.
great giant open hot concrete
Yeah.
space.
Right. Okay, so let's get back to the group about what that actually looks like.
We'll check into that and make sure we have
Yeah.
like current industry, guys, make sure that
Exactly.
everything.
Right, the next one looks like there's an overhang, which blocks some of that big open area. You go to the next one, it looks like it's an overhang.
Yeah, I think it's hard to compare the two. We'll get back to you
Yeah.
with what that is. But it does look like the LA and the South Esplanade are then meeting at that point. And so in that picture, that's where then you would wrap around. If you made a left, you would go to Pier A, right? So that's,
All I'm going to comment for Nick's purposes, I see an illegal ticket seller booth setting up right there. Soon as we open.
Empty space, yes, that's right.
okay. Noted, thank you. Yeah, no, not on my watch. Yeah. no.
All right, I hate them too, Tammy. We're on the same page there. We're
That's it, right?
they're the
I'm
worst.
sorry. Any other? Yep. And so some of the things that are on our radar, we're working on, replacing the, ball field padding. So that should be, happening really soon. I'm expecting the delivery of those in the upcoming weeks. I'm working closely with the design and construction team to kind of get that completed. We're also working really closely with Craig and the programming team to make sure that we're not disturbing the, use that's happening on the field, right? Kids have recess, we have permits, and the league is gonna be starting, so we're working really closely with each other to make sure that we can not only get this done as soon as possible, but also that we're not shutting anything down. The swings at Rockefeller Park, we're still working on a, more permanent fix. Some of the, northern ones aren't up, but it is on our radar, you know, I'm aware of it, so we're working towards getting that done. Over the last couple of weeks, one of the many firemen's poles in the Rockefeller Playground, Rockefeller Park Playground was, you know, I don't know exactly what happened, who knows what exactly happened, but struggling a little bit to find the replacement on that, so that's taking me a little more time.
Is the park closed or you just close that?
We just closed that piece,
Yeah.
right? So the fireman pole is meant where you're kind of up high and then you take it
And slide
down, so we put a piece of plywood,
So you
pretty
take it
secure,
from
so you
the-
can access it. So the playground's open and 99.9% of it is functioning, just this one piece. We are aware of it, just tripping me up a little bit. Last summer, we were having some water issues with the moat at the Real World, you know?
That's the news in the bottom.
Yeah, and, oh no, this one on the bottom is part of Rockefeller Park. That's that carousel that
Okay,
kids
yeah,
love so much. Yeah. The moat isn't, Penny Park, sorry, yeah, right? That's, depends on who, you know, who you're talking to. But
Yeah,
Penny
exactly.
Park, Real World, there's that, copper
Yeah.
right in the middle, and usually the moat fills up with water. Kids like to tromp in it. Anyway, last year it seemed to kind of go back and forth a little bit. So starting this month, you'll see the team out there trying to really figure out, you know, what's in those pipes and to try to prevent that from happening this summer. So compost, so back in 2024, way back in 2024 was another record-breaking year. Thank you, everyone, for all the food waste that you contribute. We were able to produce, we collected and used over just about 80,000 pounds of food waste and browns to make that compost. 100% of it ends up back into the parks. We collected almost 1,000 pounds of dog waste to be able to compost. Again, thank you for the dog owners and everybody who participates. So that's great. That number continues to climb, not as fast as the food waste, but that's understandable. But we're still on a climbing upswing, so that's good. And then
I'm sorry, what do you do with the dog compost?
we put it in the medians on the highway.
Okay.
So it goes out for testing and everything.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, but it goes out on the highway so that it, again, has that circular kind of thing, but just being a little mindful of what it is. So
Yeah.
we put it in the medians. New to 2025, last summer, we were able to install 2 new composters, which has replaced our earth flow machine, which has served us very well for last decade or so, but we have upgraded a bit. And so these composters will allow us to take more. So as you're probably really well aware, it was vegetables, fruits,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. Now we can take much more items that align a lot better with DSNY. And so, and that's because of these new composters, a slightly different process. So we're really going to start talking about that probably in April with Earth Month, right? We'll talk more about it and how, and what this really means to everybody. But we really try to align it with the DSNY because I get it, it's hard. UPCA takes this one takes that, especially with DSNY coming out with their composting mandate for buildings. We just really wanted to make sure that we were, you know, being consistent, right, for the greater good of things. So that is happening. So in the upcoming weeks, especially during Earth Month, we'll do a really big push, trying to connect with the community, especially with buildings, so that we can talk about what's DSNY, what's BPCA. So the theory being is that in an ideal world, the buildings would use the DSNY option so that the DSNY folks are collecting the compost and they're composting it, which would allow Battery Park City Authority to collect more food waste that's happening in the parks, which is not something that we've been capturing too much of, because again, we can't take the goldfish or the pizza, but now we can. And so we're hoping that we can really get the word out to the community, maybe connect with some residential building supers or managers or owners or whoever it is, so that we can help figure out what the best way to communicate, not only for the buildings to get the bins and how to participate and how we can help set them up for success, but then what that means to some of the green bins that we historically see at certain places might be being shipped around a little bit, again, in an effort to try to collect the food waste that we're not normally getting in the parks. And so, any and all ideas that anybody might have to get us ahead of the communication, especially with buildings, I think that it's going to be really important. Starting in April, DSNY is going to start their compliance. So, you know, that's going to be a big deal. And I just want everybody to know that Battery Park City Authority, because we're so well versed in compost, in the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we really do have lots of lessons that we're happy to share. How we got past those struggles, whether it's rodents or it's too much, it's not enough, nobody's listening, whatever the struggles are, like just call me or Nick or Becky and we'll get in front of you however it is to convenience, so that we're all working together. The dog waste obviously is another program in Forest Compost that we're always trying to increase. So working with the Dog Run upgrade project, which I think you guys heard about last month, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to Jamie today and she was like, yeah. So just trying to, you know, making sure those two are talking so that that works out really well. They actually had a meeting today and more to come. And then using feedback that we've got from the past when we've just, you know, chatted with dog owners or visited the dog park to just see like, hey, what's working, what's not working. And we've heard a lot of feedback, which we appreciate, and some we can incorporate, some we're still trying to figure it out, but forward still, you know, baby steps, but forward. So we're going to keep going for sure. Zero waste, again, I will go quick. I know it's probably taken more time than I should, but zero waste is really one of the core values that not just BPCA, but especially my team in parks operations really takes seriously, because we are largely buying the stuff and then throwing the stuff out, pavers or wood or whatever. And so we really try to find ways to incorporate that into our everyday work. In the bottom middle are plastic containers. We get those from the lots of plants that we buy. And so we've been partnering with the growers And what we do is we clean them and then we give them back so that they can reuse them. And so we kind of find nurseries that will have that opportunity. So we're not throwing them out. Unfortunately, they're not recyclable with DSNY. And so we really try to make an effort. I think thousands of little black plastic pots last year were given back to the nursery so that they can kind of be reused again instead of throwing them out, which is what we've historically done. We continue to do waste audits regularly. There was one done today, a teardrop, just to, keep that data going and see where there's room for opportunity. On the right are some of our carpenters. We had to build a crate to store some stuff and we had some wood lying around. And so they just kind of reuse these weird sized pieces in order to, create that instead of buying more wood to do it. So just one of those everyday steps that we try to take. And the wildlife, is a big deal for us. I know for the community as well. And so we keep plugging away at it. iNaturalist is a open to all app and our team uses it as well. So it's not, it's not BPCA specific. Anybody can download this app. Anybody can use it. If you're making an observation using the iNaturalist app while you're in Battery Park City, we geotagged Battery Park City. So it'll automatically upload onto our page. So if you're capturing a picture of a butterfly and just putting it on, it'll come to us, right? Because we've geotagged it that way. And so look for more, more of that. This is just a little snippet of our page, right? Some of the things that have been seen around here. Our Keep It Wild, we like to, not feed the animals, observe from a distance. We have been partnering with, of course, our local region with the DEC to see if there's any new protocols or anything that they might recommend regarding any, dead animals and other things. So we keep in connection with them as well. A few quick things that's happening over at the Solaire restroom. We're kind of piloting this bird safe blast project. And so the parks operations staff have two different things. One is like they're creating this design using this specific paint. And then on the top half are these window gems, if you will. They're basically like decals that you kind of put on. This is temporary. It's just for the spring migration season. And this is an effort to pilot this to try to minimize bird strikes, which is when a bird kind of flies into a window and then either gets hurt or dies. And that's solely because they're seeing the reflection of the lush park that's around it, right? It's our own, right, demise here. And so we're breaking up that reflection by installing these things so that the birds can realize what's happening. So some of that has started going up. We're going to finish that over the upcoming weeks, and then we're going to talk more about it in April, of course. We have our pollinator BioBlitz, which is going to be a community thing that we'll talk about more in June as it comes, but figured I'd mention it while I have the audience. And then our seasonal moth survey, which was super fun and super new for us. Obviously, this is a lot different because we end up coming at night because that's when the moths are out. So it's a really different perspective of not just Battery Park City, but who's out at night in Battery Park City, right? It's always a fun email to Pat to be like, by the way, my team will be there at 9 p.m. Don't stop them. It's just us. We're okay. Of course, our volunteers are our everything. We get over 100 every year, sometimes from corporate groups. We have a couple of regulars that meet us every week. All are welcome. We have no shortage of work for you. I promise you, if you want to volunteer, we'll figure out a way to get you out there. Usually it's with the Hort team, but we can also, if you're interested in other things, we have the maintenance team. If waste management suits you, we can do that too. But usually people choose the horticulture, the weeding and the planting and the mulching, but it really helps and it really makes a difference. So, you can always email info.vpc@vpca.ny.gov. So Nick and Becky will get that. And of course, they shoot that right over to me. Craig, we do him a disservice to remind everybody about our great winter calendar and our summer calendars coming up. I think we're finalizing it now, but some really great programs in there. some great programs in the summer, spring one, which will be coming, up, I think. It's
Shortly,
spring, yeah, shortly. But the winter calendar is still full effect and they've got lots of things happening, well until April, I think, that, I can't remember the calendars. Anyway, it's got great stuff. You should definitely check it out. I'm going the wrong way, sorry. And then last but not least, please keep in touch, your comments, your thoughts, it matters. You know, my team is out there 362 days of the year. Pat's team is out there 365 days of the year. When Allied sees something, they definitely let me know. When my team sees something, they definitely let us know. But if you guys see something, you should definitely let us know. And we'll go out there. Social media, emails, website, newsletter, it sounds a little tacky, but it really is. Me and my team put a lot of effort into the parks happenings where we try to give you a snapshot of what's happening in the upcoming month. The directors take a lot of time to think about what it is that they're going to do. We work really closely with Becky to try to make those flowers look as pretty as they can on What's in Bloom Wednesdays or whatever day we do it, and any of the other social medias. It really does come from the team. So all that information really is quite a great way to keep up with what it is that we're doing. And I think that's it. Do I have a thank you slide? Oh, I don't. Talk to Jasmine about that. Yep, thank you. Any questions?
Justine,
No,
Sarah, I have a few.
you gotta go, it's not like I don't, yeah.
I have some basic questions. One is, with respect to like the streets, like the street trees,
Mhm.
the tree boxes
Mhm.
and so forth, where does your maintenance jurisdiction begin and end?
Yeah, it's the buildings are responsible for maintaining what's adjacent to their property as a general rule, right? I mean, everybody's got their own lease and stuff like that as a general rule, and that's why, a lot of the buildings do the sidewalks and the snow and everything like that. Battery Park City Authority does I'll plant the trees, we'll prune the trees. If there's any questions about the trees, we'll kind of put those in. Some buildings take it upon themselves to mulch around it or plant around it. That's not something that we would normally do because we wouldn't just do that to all the street trees anyway. And so it's a little bit more of a collaboration, but ultimately, my team will remove or plant or prune the trees. Also the grate, if that's looking a little,
If it's hit by a bus or whatever.
you can give me a call and we'll take a look at that as well.
And so do you guys make the decision when a street tree needs to be replaced, or is that up to the building?
That would be up to, we would ultimately make that decision if a building feels like there's something wrong with their tree, if we haven't caught it first, which is probably a higher likelihood, but if they have any questions or thoughts about why they might want to replace a tree, they could let us know. Usually they would file a permit and then they would loop us in and we'd be like, wait, what are you talking about, right? And that's how we would get folded in.
But who's responsible for paying for it and doing it then, if it's a building tree? You guys are anyway.
Street trees in Battery Park City Authority maintains, which means we would replace them
On South End Avenue.
on South End Avenue. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And that's somewhat
How far east does that go?
a question.
How far east
Did you
on South End?
go, not just South End Avenue, but how far east period? Does it go up?
To the highway.
It does go all the way to the highway.
Yeah.
And a somewhat similar question on sidewalks, where does park begin and end? You know, like there's streets at the end of South End Avenue by South Cove, it's all pavers.
Cul-de-sac,
Yeah,
right,
cul-de-sac, all pavers. Similarly, Albany Street is pavers. Are those yours to maintain, or is this the buildings once again?
Yeah, those are always my best questions. And so often when I get those questions, I need a little more specifics and I'll often meet the building manager there so we can really look at what it is that we're talking about. And then we kind of go back and look at the meets and bounds. The cul-de-sac specifically on South End Avenue coming to South Cove, those new pavers, my team did, those are permeable pavers. That was part of the pilot there. But then, as you start going this way, it'd be more of the regatta, right? I think on this side, and then the Cove Club on this side. And so, Usually buildings also are not shy about calling either Nick or I, right? When they have questions about, is this paver you or is this paver me, right? And great question. And so we go out there, we meet, we figure that out and we talk about it. But as a general rule, the buildings kind of maintain the cleanliness and the paths of it, just like the building would remove the snow in the winter time.
I have a substantive question too, and that's relating to biodiversity and trees. A lot of the existing, like the Esplanade, it's all the same trees all the way up and down.
Yeah.
And South Cove, similarly. Are the new resiliency plans differing from that model, and specifically on the Esplanade where a lot of work is being done, but a lot of trees are being kept? What's the thinking on diversity of trees and what are your plans in that regard?
Yeah, so to the extent that any of the trees that are coming down and new ones that we're putting in, we're definitely going to be diversifying them. So, we won't necessarily put in more honey locusts because we have a ton of honey locusts as is, right? And some of the other trees, and then where we're not taking down trees and we're kind of salvaging them, I think that we'll just have a longer term plan that as they start to fade, we'll diversify them. So specifically like the linden trees, which are right down the middle, right? And so, sure, love to diversify them, but also not gonna, just do it just to do it. But we'll have a plan of what types of trees, especially native, which lindens are not.
I mean, I'm conflicted on my own mind about it. I mean, the similar trees are quite beautiful, but necessarily the most healthy for the environment. And there's interest in having variety as well.
Yeah, no, it is not an easy, answer, whether you're starting new or you're kind of in some of our position, right, where these trees have been here as long as the community has. And you can ask lots of people and they'll have an opinion about lindens in general, or, doing that mono kind of culture, of trees versus they should all be different, right? Are we going for aesthetics? Are we going for biodiversity? Are we going for, right? There's lots of perspectives, but what I do know is that the new trees that are coming will definitely help diversify Battery Park City's tree canopy overall. And then any trees that need to be diversified will address as they start to come to the end of their life. And so the S1 we haven't quite figured out quite yet. There's a lot happening there already, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, that's lots of lindens, lots of oaks, right? Some of the tree canopy things.
I see you have a couple of questions, Tammy and then Nick. Tammy first.
Thank you. I had a question about maintenance, and when the question was asked about how far east, I understood that Battery Park City maintains the medians in 9A as well, from the Battery to Chambers. Is that true? Is that your team as well?
Yes, it is. My team oversees and manages the contractor that we have that does that. My team, we don't go into the medians and do the work, but we're responsible for it. Yes, so I go beyond that for the trees that are in there as well.
So does the Battery Park City Authority choose, for example, plantings and replacements and what is done in that, or is it just a maintenance of what is there and replace in kind?
No, it is, maintenance largely, and we're trying to just keep everything alive and happy there. But last summer or last spring, maybe even 2 springs ago, but somewhat recently, we had done a pretty decent planting where we took out a lot of the roses that were in the medians, which were not happy and were just riddled with diseases, and we just couldn't keep up with it. And so we removed all those roses and we planted a tremendous amount of plants back into it, all natives. And so it must have been last spring because now we're going on maybe a year. So we're hoping we'll see those flowers kind of come in. So we don't have an overall design to just jam pack it with plants, but we're definitely addressing things as they come up, such as like the roses being diseased. And so let's take this time to put in a appropriate yet native plants.
Perfect. And then I had a funny question for you, and I think of this only because my kids up at SUNY ESF, which is Environmental Science and Forestry. And strangely enough, they actually pull a ton of kids out of the New York metro area, specifically around New York City. So I find it really interesting. Has your division or the authority formed any kind of a partnership with any of the colleges to be able to offer during the seasons and especially the summer opportunities for college students to work alongside as paid interns?
Yeah, the battery.
Not for my kid, she's doing animals, but and she worked, she did, yeah, no, she worked at Wild Bird Fund and took care of some of the birds that actually had been found down here. So interesting, but it dawned on me to ask in terms of horticulture and planting and education.
Yeah, so Battery Park City Authority does have a very robust intern program. And so that's widespread. Each department actually gets its own intern, finance, HR, so on and so forth. So Parks Operations specifically, we do get an intern. And what they often help us with, instead of working alongside the horticulture or the maintenance team, they might be working a lot with like the biodiversity or the zero waste. And then they're the ones that might be out there in the summertime tabling at the community field day, talking about those zero waste initiatives that we have, or they're out there alongside programming on World Water Day, talking about our permeable pavers. And so they help specifically with Parks Operations. Our summer intern often helps with those types of projects and community outreach and education. But I do love ESF. They're also a state agency, right, being SUNY. So I'm very familiar with their director of sustainability, and we've worked closely with them over there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Nick, your turn.
Next
Hey, Jeff, thank you.
Question?
Ryan, I know, I'm such a weirdo, right?
Can't wait till tomorrow, Nick.
I'm like asking questions on the call. This is just more of a heads up for the group, and Ryan, thank you. I will tell the community board what I tell Ryan every day, which is, Ryan's the best one we got. So awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for doing such a great job in everything you do on a daily basis and in keeping the community so beautiful and the community board so well informed. So thanks for all the work in putting this together and the presentation, Stephen, which I think was really informative, even for someone who lives and works it every day like Becky and I do.
It's
and
deeper
this-
every time.
And put this in the file of like literally real-time updates to the community board. 1 second, sweetheart. There is a trip hazard we discovered on the Tribeca Bridge that Rob is going to fix actually on Friday. I want to give the community a heads up about that. That's what I was actually saying.
Okay, yeah, so I think Saturday, maybe we'll start
Yeah.
Friday and into Saturday.
It's
We're
that
gonna do,
saddle, right?
Yep, the kick plates or the saddle, they're like metal pieces, if you will, that kind of right outside the elevator. Are kind of a little uneven. I'm not sure trip hazard's the right word, Nick, but uneven. And so we're gonna be working on that in the next couple of days. We're doing it largely the work on a Saturday, not to disrupt the tremendous amount of school kids, right, that use that bridge to get back and forth to school. So that's why we're doing it on a Saturday. So if you see my team out there, be a little patient, but they'll be in and out as fast as they can. Thank you, Nick.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Ryan.
Only thing I have to ask is, talking about the different trees, or the plantings that are native, are they less flowering or less colorful in technically? Because I've noticed that there's been a big push to go native, which totally makes sense, but it's just a lot less colorful.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't compare a native plant to hibiscus or a sunflower, right? It's just the nature of it is a little bit different. And so through social media and things like this, we do try to talk a little bit more about what beauty means to us in parks operations, right? And maybe that doesn't always mean a showy flower. That said, that doesn't mean we're 100% native, right? And we really do try to find the pockets where there's still some surprises and fun moments with those kinds of flowers. But I
But
think
yes,
as
that's
a
why-
general statement, yes, native plants aren't often as showy
Or
as,
colorful, yeah.
or colorful as like your typical perennials that you probably
That
see.
makes sense, but for uneducated people like me, when it comes to this stuff, it's almost better to say that
Yeah.
outright, because it's like, why is everything less colorful?
Yeah,
And I never would have thought native until as you were answering Tammy, and and the way the conversation went today. It was
Yeah.
like, duh,
yeah.
that's why.
Also too, you know, over the last couple of seasons, the horticulture team, and even the maintenance team, you know, you might see that maybe the landscapes aren't, cut back,
Yeah.
you know, flat at the same time, or all the leaves aren't picked up immediately, especially in the landscapes, because they really do act as a form of habitat for either overwintering insects or, you know, a seed pod might feed a bird in the winter time. And so I do understand that, like, traditionally, landscape speaking, it feels different, but it really is for more of, and, you know, to support the wildlife.
It's
So,
more natural than manicured,
yes, that is definitely a true statement. And so
which
we're
is, yeah.
trying to rethink what beauty means in Battery Park City a little bit, but still lots of color out there. We're not,
Yes.
we're not,
No.
not there yet. So we know we love it.
We love them much.
Too. You're welcome. Thanks for
Thank you so
having
much.
me.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is just a discussion item for us to discuss and decide what our community priorities should be in 2025. And the context of this is what should we be focusing meeting agenda items on? And, you know, we can think of a number of things that are important to us, one of which is what we've just spent time talking about, which is the parks. And I'm not, Sarah, I see you reading that thing. That's
not
not what
that.
I'm talking about.
I know.
I'll talk about those. We
I
do have to
can't
talk
wait.
about those.
I just can't wait. Yes.
I'm talking about for us to decide what we think we should focus on in terms of general topics. And certainly the parks and the horticultural aspect of the parks is something that I think is important to us. But there may be other things, such as housing affordability within Battery Park City. So I don't necessarily have a list of my own. I want to hear what people think. Betty?
I would start with some of the projects that are going on with in conjunction with the authority already, such as the street safety, which they have initiated.
Mhm.
I also think things are gonna come up with, as you open up Rockefeller Park all the way to Wagner Park, there are gonna be a lot of issues that come up at various stages. They're gonna be natural things to look at, and we don't know exactly the timing to know exactly what's gonna be involved at what time, but it's gonna come up over and over at different points in 2025.
Which might be safety related as well,
Which
maybe.
might be, but it's also could be, if they're working on a barrier around the building, or when they're working about removing trees. It's different logistical issues and things that people are concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, with the North project, it probably won't start, I mean, Becky has a better idea than I do, but I'm guessing that it's likely to start no earlier than late this year.
Yeah,
Right?
that's correct.
But once it starts, it's starting.
And I feel strongly that we need really good signage. We don't have it, yeah, I know I said, oh, you know, what's this, what's this? I know what those spaces were, but there are no signs on it for the, passersby, for people that live there,
You're talking about signs,
on the drilling, testing.
oh, you mean about what's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
signage,
Yeah.
and there
Signage.
still isn't.
We have Belvedere signs going up very, very soon, like this, like the upcoming week that we have going up, but we also have a dedicated team that's coming in as we do the Northwest, that's developing materials, so it's not just me and Nick. working on things so that we're gonna have extra hands all
Because we
day.
really
Make
need
sure,
signage.
absolutely, yeah.
Because that's something that Betty's gonna need to get around.
Well, I want to say there's another issue too, because I went on a Route 9A walk around,
Okay.
which is another issue that we have to keep an eye on,
Yeah.
if any coordination is needed.
Yeah.
Because it is our whole west border, our whole east border.
Right.
But anyway, there's some, I found out their test pits. But when I asked, I went to the New York State DOT, the New York City DOT, then to the Battery Park City Authority, from the Port Authority, there are all these people there, and everyone said, that's not mine, I don't know what it is. That's not mine, I don't know where it is, that's not our jurisdiction, we can't even talk about it. Obviously, it was somebody's. It turned out, county said it's Battery Park City Authority, it's a test pit. It's going on related to some of the Brazilians.
Yes, yes, there are a couple.
But again, I have no idea. One night when I went home, after one of the meetings here, it was about 10 at night, it was a late meeting that we had. It was like daylight there, because these heavy duty trucks were all working along Chambers, around Chambers Street as well as Warren Street. And they looked at me with terror, like, don't you dare come down this route, because we have all these heavy vehicles, it's just really dangerous. No idea what was going on, and there was no signage saying, no.
Yeah.
It's really driving a lot of people crazy,
No, I hear you.
not just me.
Yeah, because people they don't know, so, and something, if the workers are working, you're not gonna bother them, or they're not gonna stop to tell you. And
And they won't know.
sometimes they don't even know what they have to tell you. Well, we're digging,
Can
we're checking.
can I tag to that? It's not only about what's going on. It's really about the detour. We don't have any detour signs up either. And that
That's it.
actually, a detour sign with a map is super helpful.
Got it.
Not only what's going on, but how do I get where I need to go?
And it's for the bikers as well. as
It's for the
walkers,
public,
walkers,
period.
and-
Yeah,
Yeah, it's for
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, so where you shouldn't continue beyond this point, should be noted.
yeah, exactly.
Where to go instead,
Mhm.
even without an explanation. I had no idea. I just kind of fell upon it and went.
Now what? How do I get?
Yeah, I think to some extent, even though the Northwest project itself, construction isn't starting until, months from now or whatever. These test pits, we got a presentation on them a few months ago, but number one, most people weren't at that presentation, and certainly the general public can't really be charged with that. And secondly, even those of us who were don't remember. I mean,
Yeah,
I noticed today, for example, at the end of South End Avenue by South Cove, there's a orange line marking out a square there, and I do remember there was a test pit scheduled to be there. I'm presuming that that's what that's for.
Yeah.
And, but I guarantee you get a lot of questions of what in the world is going on here. And so I think it's appropriate to, I know the South Project Construction Communications is a separate contractor. It may be time to hire that
it's the
contractor
north.
or have somebody in-house basically give out the notices. Oh, we're starting the test pit, this week is, it's the end of South End Avenue or
Mhm.
on Harrison Street.
And they have all these solar panels set up,
Same thing,
with
yeah.
tape around them. It's like, what the heck?
And
And
what do
people are
yeah.
Complaining about those.
Is it a experiment to see what's going on, or is it actually powering something? It would be lovely to know.
Yeah, I mean, we
And
do
is
know.
it going to hurt?
We do.
We don't know. I mean, we don't know
I've
because,
gotten such weird questions.
It's, it's basically air testing and noise monitoring
Got it.
to
Okay,
get a
so
baseline before the.
work is done.
work's
Okay.
done. At
And
least
then
that's my understanding.
these new test pits are for the Northwest Resiliency Project?
Yes.
So the one that's back behind 200 Rectors for Northwest Resiliency, not for the South?
I have to check on the exact locations, but.
I just
but
wonder, yeah.
For the most part, I know it is Northwest, says file work, so it's just, some preliminary work, what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of information, I know that on occasion, like Nick will send an email out or whatever, but it would be great to know more in advance. As you said,
Well, just-
perfect idea. Like
Not
what,
too far in advance.
no, not too far,
No,
like
That's also.
exactly. Week
No idea.
before.
What's going on just north of North Cove Marina?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That whole area is blocked off. I have no idea.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, there's multiples, yeah.
Just put the signs up,
They're coming up, they're coming up.
because there are so many neighbors
know.
that don't go online, that
Yeah,
don't.
Tammy's got her hand up again. Go ahead.
Mary Ann.
Hi, Mary Ann. So as well.
I was going to say, let Marianne go before me. I'll go after her.
I just want to add to that. Nick, I sent you a message yesterday about those panels. They look like solar panels, and I was seeing them near the Montessori School and the South Cove area. But now I think I'm hearing people say they're seeing it in the north as well.
I think there is one in there.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
you
didn't.
don't know what they are.
Yeah, that's what Jeff was saying. It's so what we want to do is before the work happens in any one particular location, you want to get kind of what the baseline conditions are for noise and air. And this way you can baseline against any of the impacts from the work. But the larger point, yes, Mary, I'm sorry, I got your text. I was on the board meeting and this today, but I will respond. But yes, generally for the benefit of the group, what we have learned here, I think Jeff and I discussed this ad nauseum perhaps at some of these meetings, is I think you need what the average is, 50 impersonations or impressions on somebody for them to sometimes understand what's happening before they do it, because everyone is going about their own lives and doing their own things, which is important.
Sometimes, yeah.
Becky and I and Ryan and Jeff and Zach increasingly, and Tammy and Justine and you all are kind of very much enmeshed in this. But for the people who are not, we really I think the word is, we actually don't want to be obnoxious about how much outreach we are doing, to the point where people say, stop telling us. And I don't think we'll ever get to the point where people say, stop telling us, but we really want to be obnoxious about how much you're hearing about it. So I apologize in advance if you guys are hearing from us even more frequently. But for the folks who may not be following until the construction actually starts, we want to try to have as few people caught unawares as possible. We can have everyone in Battery Park City know about this and be sick of hearing it before it happens. I think our work will be done. And I don't
Okay,
think
but
we'll
there
get
was
there,
no
but we want to try to.
announcement about these testing devices going out, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So what's the question?
So there was no announcement that these panels were going to be going out with chain link fence around them in various locations, with no sign that says, we're testing air, we're testing water.
Oh, it's all part of the announcement we put out in November. It's also in my report tonight. But signage,
Just put a
Yeah, but
sign
here's what,
on.
Nick,
but
Nick,
signage,
here's what
physical
I'm
signage
saying.
is also
Nick, I'm
helpful.
just saying,
Yeah.
if you're putting an object where people walk and there's a chain link fence around it, it shouldn't go up before it's announced and or explained. Like, what is this thing here? What is going on? What am I walking through? Is there something bad here? All of these are possibilities.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought it up is because at the board meeting, the Montessori school was expressing a lot of concern about bad air.
Yep.
Its work is being done. So when I walked past it an hour later, I thought possibly it was related to the fact that they were testing before the work is done. But
Yes, baseline testing, but we will do our best to get as much advance notice out as possible with what is sometimes a shifting
Yeah.
schedule. As it becomes more precise in terms of when we can do it, we will get it out as soon as we can.
Well, and I think signage on the thing itself,
Yeah, physical signage is a good point.
What's going on here? And then just a brief description of what's.
What it is.
And maybe a
Yeah.
QR code
Yeah.
to something else, whatever.
So
Feeling my thunder, Jeff.
Oh, that's
I was-
the answer is,
So
but
Nick,
before you say to me, well, go ahead, Tammy.
we have often said that the public notice is best as soon as the bulldozers start rolling down the street. Unfortunately, this is the preliminary to the bulldozers. So what we would really like is signage on it,
Yes,
right? And you know what? If people are sick of hearing about it, then yeah, I agree.
let them be
But-
sick of it. I agree with you.
but-
100%.
But I found it fairly telling that even I, who seems to think I stay up to date the best I can, had no clue what was going on at Belvedere. Like, are all the trees coming out? Are they coming out now? Will they
Yeah.
be coming out late? Like, it didn't, and I think I've sat through most of these meetings.
Yeah.
So, uneducated and uninformed all at the same time is equal to educated and informed sometimes when you don't put two and two together.
Or
'Cause
too
so
early,
much,
right, too far in advance of when it's gonna happen.
correct. Nobody's remembering in March what happened in November. So there's just way too much that's happened in between November and today. So yes, signs on every single one. What is this? What are we doing? And stay tuned, please.
Great, great,
Thank
great.
you.
That's good. Exactly, my sentiments exactly. So in terms of, I mean, we're on this subject because we're trying to identify priorities, and I think we all agree that keeping abreast of all of this activity related to or impacted by the resiliency projects is something that we want to do and we need to keep abreast of. Yeah, go ahead.
I would also look at, since we're implementing, because it's new with the composting, the DSNY, and the coordination, you know, I'm glad Ryan's gonna be working on that. But I think it's something the community board's gonna have to keep looking at, because there's going to be a lot of education and questions, and
Yeah, some of that may be quality of life, but Battery Park City is somewhat uniquely situated in that subject area. Yeah.
which is why I think that should be looked at within this community.
Yeah. And you also mentioned the street safety project. We may want to, this may be the year to address South End Avenue more generally than just street safety. And I think.
Jimmy's cheering.
Yes, there you go.
As we'll see when we get to looking at this thing, you know, there was a reference to South End Avenue project and DOT says, there ain't no project, you know, come back when there is, basically. And I, at least at one point in time, I thought the old project is obsolete in today's world. I think I still think that, but what struck me is South End Avenue is different today even than it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, there was not a taxi in the taxi stand in front of Gateway, and there hadn't been for a couple of years. I mean, maybe an odd one would show up. Now there's a long line of taxis out there again. And who knows, maybe Uber is just getting too expensive. Maybe people are realizing there's actually convenience of hailing a cab. I don't know, but I think that the conditions along South End Avenue are sufficiently different from what they have been historically, that now may be the year for us to rethink it. And, you know, in informal conversations with Raju Mann and others, they agree that this is something that is worth addressing. And
Well, so is, okay, with this, Zach, with the term, what is the name of the project you're doing for where they do cross-docking? It's a pilot project now. Micro hubs, thank you. Some of those things, I know Tammy was calling for one on South End Avenue.
No, not South End Avenue. I was calling for the front of Brookfield that has that empty driveway that they are no longer using to be able to be used as a micro hub as a way to facilitate getting the trucks off of the center of South End Avenue from doing what they do. Or,
And they
for
do it on
example,
the
double
islands.
parking next to the city bike, because the city bike rack that was installed on the corner of South End and Albany, the only thing that has done is provided a location for Amazon delivery trucks and other delivery trucks to park next to the bike rack.
that's a good point. I mean, I'm not sure that that's the solution, but it's certainly a solution that we should look at, or an option we should look at. Another way, and Tammy, I don't know if you've noticed this, but on South End Avenue, it's not just the Amazon trucks during the day or the Fresh Direct or the grocery store deliverers. There are actual trucks that have nothing to do with the neighborhood who use the center of South End Avenue. It's basically a truck depot.
We asked
You know,
DOT that, and DOT was I actually spoke with them about it specifically, and they said because of the location of Battery Park City, it's often used in the middle because the street is extremely wide, and it is a free place for them to back trucks up to each other to offload and minimize instead of driving the giant trucks around. So yeah, there's definitely issues there, and the question starts to be, we need to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety. And where do these trucks go? How do we get them out of the middle of the street? Because it's impossible to see around them to cross the street. And jaywalking is legal now, so it doesn't make, you can't say, oh, just cross at the corner. What you really need to do is enhance pedestrian safety and safety for the
Yes.
bicyclists.
Right, and it's one thing to have trucks on your street that's delivering to you.
Right.
Or your local businesses. It's another thing to basically be, a transport hub for, like a railroad station. That's not what residential streets, or for that matter, commercial streets in Manhattan should be used for.
Which is kind of three levels of freight to be worried about, well, to think about. One of them is the freight for cross-docking from trucks down to either push carts, which they tend to do on the, so probably true of the south side as well, versus to vans or something else. But then there's also the bikes that come, not the deliverista sorts, but the Whole Food sorts.
Right, with the big trailers,
We
yeah.
want to keep them off the sidewalks. They need somewhere to park. So what are we going to do about loading zones or something that might allow them to park on the sidewalk? To get them off of the street, or get them off the sidewalk. So that whole issue of organizing that. And then again, there is, as you go to Blue Highways, they're looking at how they can bring freight in from Brooklyn and the Bronx versus by big truck, by some kind of marine vehicle. If they do that, keep in mind, New York Waterways has already said they are looking at how to refit some of their boats to use for bringing in freight.
At the Port Authority terminal there?
They did not specifically name a terminal, but that is one of the ones that they use and manage.
Yeah.
So I think that is an option that has to be considered, and the ones that Blue Highways are talking about often are off hours, when commuting's not going on. They'd like to use that space, so it's up and running 24/7.
Betty, I think that's a use that we need to know from the Battery Park City Authority, who has an agreement for usage type, as to whether or not that would either be allowed as a usage type under current contract for North Cove or Brookfield Pier. Because I don't believe it is in the current contract.
I think those are topics for 2025, though, is my point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Betty. And I mean, some of that veers into your committee. But as I said with the other subject, there are some unique issues to Battery Park City on these areas. Yeah, so I agree with that. Let's see, what else do we care about in this community? Resident-friendly retail. I mean, that's,
Lacking.
the subjects we've just been talking about are susceptible to actually addressing and maybe even having a solution for. Resident-friendly retail is certainly something we can talk about, but it's not as obvious to me what the solution is, but,
Right, or what power we have for the solution.
and
Well,
as to what
Have,
extent are
have we ever worked with the Battery Park City Authority, who could potentially do small business incentive programs because they are a state authority? The Downtown Alliance cannot provide funding to businesses in Battery Park City Authority because it is outside their catchment zone. They are able to only provide help through marketing programs, but they cannot do any kind of real business incentives. So the question starts to be, when you take a look at what the power of the authority has to be an economic driver for small businesses to fill storefronts.
That's a good suggestion, Ken, because once again, in just informal conversations with members of the authority, including Raju, that they know the problem exists. I mean, they are concerned about that problem as they should be. Whether they can spend money on it is another thing, but it's certainly worth considering and worth exploring. So resident-friendly retail and the role the authority may have in addressing that problem. There's perennial issues such as active recreation space, housing affordability, I think I mentioned that.
Yeah, that definitely.
And then,
Can I throw out there
Sure.
that pushing our elected officials to once again try to pass, Kavanaugh's Bill S-1462, which was, in reference to affording some affordability to people in, condos that fall under a certain,
yes,
income range, whatever. And it's, you know, it's not helping a million people, it's helped a few hundred, but it would be something. And also I think he's trying to get the, income level cutoff for SCREE and DREE increased.
Yes,
Because I think
yes.
it's at $50,000, I think. It's 50 and that's just too low for Manhattan.
well, I think the screen and DREE portion of that is maybe, quality of life, because that's applicable citywide.
Okay.
But I,
I think he's got it specific to Battery Brook City, but I'm not positive.
I know he has had and passed legislation specific to
Yes.
Battery Park City to allow that program to even exist in Battery Park
Correct,
City.
that has
because it
happened.
previously could not.
Correct. That has passed and that exists, but now it's looking at the income levels.
Which means it's a citywide program.
Which now means it's, yeah, it always was, but for
Right.
weird historical
Now we're
reasons.
included,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
part of the city.
yeah, now we're included. But I do think that, housing, legislation, is
Indeed.
worth exploring. I mean, the authority already has a program somewhat similar to that, or at least they've offered it up.
They've offered it, but they're not acting on it.
They haven't acted on it.
No, no, they're in negotiations, sort of, with the homeowners coalition on that. And it's one of the things that they have put forth, but they have, just like they have not extended anybody's ground lease, commercial, condo or other residential buildings, they also have not acted on this. So,
So,
yeah, so
the
it,
general topic of housing affordability.
Yeah, and I
that specific
that one,
issue.
and I think we should also talk about Gateway. If there's a way to get something, and I don't know.
Well, maybe, yeah, I mean, Gateway is so unique that it's hard to, wrap it into a general Bowery Park City issue, but it's definitely an important issue.
It goes, Jeff, also to overall affordable housing in Battery Park City and lack thereof.
Yeah.
I mean,
It does.
every bill, and there is an outstanding question that was not answered when BJ left for the remaining rental buildings that are here, and whether or not they would be allowed to be converted to co-op or condo with the ground lease extension and other things in place. And that
And
should
that's
be
something,
that is something that we should talk about.
I agree.
We were
It's
advised that
cheap
City of Yes
voters,
does not
right?
City of Yes does not apply to Battery Park City necessarily. So anything that is done here will be caveated a little bit differently.
Yes, yes. Okay, I've added that to my list.
Mm-hmm.
Any other issues that we haven't talked about? I mean, it seems to me we filled up the agenda for the.
That's great. We have a lot to talk about.
Um,
I'd
Okay,
actually like to
Uh,
add one more.
okay,
I know it is not necessarily ripe because we're going to go through the Northwest Battery Park City resiliency. But I don't know if everybody is aware that e-bikes, electric bikes, are not allowed in the Hudson River Park Trust in the parkland.
That's funny.
However, they are not illegal in Battery Park City on the Esplanade.
Maybe they need to be.
So that is a question that we could consider. It seems like we have lots of time because but on the other hand, when we're compromising pedestrian safety with narrowed and deep pathways and detours due to the new resiliency project, maybe it is the time to see what it would look like to keep electrified bikes off of the Esplanade.
Yeah.
Not regular pedals, not pedal pushers, but the e-bikes.
yeah, no, it's dangerous enough to walk out there these days. But
And the city bikes as well.
I mean, yeah, city bikes, electric bikes.
Period.
Green time, that's definitely.
Hey, Tammy, can I ask, I'm sorry to jump in, but this is a really good point. Do you recall that it's due to the legislation that exempts specifically Hudson River Park, or was it something that HRPK did themselves?
Yes, the original bill in Albany exempted just that one stretch.
HRPT.
Yeah, just that.
I'm sorry, state law, not city law. Okay, but it
State
was
law,
that
yeah.
specifically carved it out in the legislation, right?
Yeah,
It's-
the original authorization that legalized e-bikes, class 2, 1, 2, and 3, specifically carved out Hudson River Park. Rest, but
Just
Big-
that-
However, we were advised that Battery Park City, because it is state-owned land and it is a park, could make a different decision. And that the rules that happen in the parks in Battery Park City are not the same rules necessarily that are done, for example, in Central Park.
Right, so they could follow what Hudson River Park Trust is doing, is your point.
Potentially. And the question is, how does that happen? What is the mechanism? You can't just ask.
Betty,
The
maybe have an
development,
idea.
when we walk around, the person that was representing Hudson River Park Trust brought up that very issue. And the problem at that whole Esplanade area that's just east of Stuyvesant High School. It's a real problem because people don't understand when they come off the Esplanade that they have to get onto the bike routes, which aren't that convenient to get to from there. So they automatically go down the pedestrian paths,
And then they figure it out when they realize.
Well,
which is illegal, which there is illegal.
and
But
there's actually a sign on the bike path that says e-bikes and scooters are not allowed here. So
Yes.
it's, if we are looking for a holistic thing, the bike path has signs all on the greenway that says e-bikes and scooters are not allowed on here. They're not allowed in the Hudson River Park, but they are allowed in Battery Park City. So if we want to have a
It says
consistent
that?
messaging from the Battery all the way to 59th, then Battery Park City Authority needs to take a look at what we're doing there, and maybe there's a way to start it during construction as a way to protect the pedestrians, and then see where we go.
Becky,
Yeah,
have an idea.
so is there someone at Hudson River Park like enforcing that? Is there someone out there that like stops people on e-bikes that are like coming between or no?
Not really.
Okay, that's just what I wanted to know.
New York City pets.
Yeah.
Excuse my ignorance on this issue. Are we saying that we want to allow e-bikes on the bikeway, or we don't want to allow?
It's creating confusion, and the Hudson River Park Trust is not happy about that.
But we don't want it, because the Hudson River Park Trust doesn't have it, and I'm assuming, Tammy, your point is,
Well,
we
that's
don't
what's
want
the
it.
e-bikes on the street with the traffic.
Or the city streets, you know, not on the West Side Highway particularly, but you go over
Well,
one.
I mean, I was wondering the other day, I was driving down West Street and there was this silly little e-bike right in the middle of the traffic lane. And I was wondering, what, is that guy, you know, a lunatic? And I didn't realize that he did not have any other.
Place to go. Well, I mean, he could have gone in one block,
Well,
but,
and that's what the 9A study's looking at. If something has to be done because it's just too confusing.
but it's not safe having those vehicles that can go up to 40 miles an hour, even though they're not supposed to.
Those are illegal, but the thing is, you can't keep arguing for how to fix things to allow the illegal people, but even the it,
Right,
because what they're doing is illegal.
but they're, Oh,
What's legal in New York, no.
Well,
New
well,
York
it would-
State, only up to 25 miles per hour is the top for class 3 e-bikes.
and those are the ones that are allowed on the bike paths.
no,
But there, no,
Not the state, not for Hudson River Park.
Okay.
They don't allow 1, 2s, or 3s.
and they're not supposed to be on the bike lane either. And there's signage up around there that says it. And you see the confluence, whether they're, you know, the speed aside for those who jimmy it to, you know, boost their speed. The intersection over by Stuyvesant gets, and the lower part of, it's a difficult thing. And then you also have, let's be honest, there's a ton of really fast bicycles in the evening that zip behind Brookfield. It's less of an issue in the summer when it's packed and it's a dismount zone, so it's not as convenient. But construction will make things very inconvenient for pedestrians. And we need to ensure that pedestrians have the priority for getting from point A to point B, because the e-bikes can be in the street and in the roads. Whereas you're not going to have somebody walking down the West Side Highway to get places.
So in terms of the issue that was, I think, either Tammy or Betty identified that related to Northwest Resiliency and its effect on e-bikes on the
Esplanade.
Esplanade. What is it that we want to try, what problem are we trying
You have
to
two,
solve?
yeah, you've got two different positions, I think.
Well-
Tammy, what's your position? And then,
I think I'm
it's
trying to
yeah,
get the
well,
e-bikes, I'm trying to get the e-bikes off of the Esplanade during the construction phase,
Okay,
which will end up matching the situation that happens up in Hudson River Park Trust where they're not allowed there either. And the symmetry of having it aligned during the construction is the best way to protect the pedestrians. Ideally, by the time the construction's over,
They're
nine
used to
A,
it.
nine A, they're used to it, and 9A has found a solution. So the timing, timing could be very fortuitous to do it.
but go ahead, Betty, so your side now to see, okay, so
You know, something, there were no sides to this. We both pointed out it was a problem due to inconsistency.
got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred solution?
Well, I think the fact that what the law says, it's true, it's unenforced, so when people like Becky are saying, really? It is unenforced, so it is confusing from that level too. But I don't particularly have a position as much as I understand the confusion.
Okay,
And I know that we're certainly advocating for more space on 9A, because that would be one big solution
would be.
to this.
okay, all right. So I think we have, I'll try to rationalize these lists and
Maybe
the
next month.
the
have a-
co-chairs,
Yeah,
Zach
exactly.
and I will try to
Sit
figure
down
out a way to
here.
put these on agendas.
These are
and
just issues to deal with.
Yeah, issues to deal with. Yes, that's right. We're not trying to solve them in tonight's meeting at all. Okay, so that's that item on the agenda. Now let me move to, I think it's,
Security.
it's Pat Murphy's report, followed by Nick's, and then followed by the district needs.
At least we only have, you weren't it, we only have 4.
Yeah.
We had like pages last night with
Yeah.
transportation, so this is good, I'm happy with this 4.
All right, Patrick, you're up. That's probably the last page.
Change seats.
There you go, good, yes, come talk to your owl.
Let's get back to the park, right?
Yes, right?
So, since I've been
I
back,
need to go to the last one for his.
dealing with the report, the graffiti this year, we've only had for the month, none. While last year we had 4 instances. The homeless, last year we had 6 encounters. This month we had 8 encounters with the homeless. But, basically, most of the homeless that we're encountering is, up in Rockefeller Park and Teardrop Park. Okay, lost and found property, is the same 4 and 4 for both years. Park rules, there was only, 1 report for this month. Last month there was 5. Last year there was 5. Vendors, of course, they haven't been out yet because of the weather, so we're at 0 and 0. For the dogs, this month, we had 4, and, last year we had 4. But, just to report on that, because we got an email identifying that dog off a leash, we were able to find the person and issue them a summons. But for the total, I'm sure I won't have this type of results next month, but, we wrote 6 summonses this month,
For dogs.
dogs off the leash.
Nice, where?
So, we're at the park, there was 2, we had 2 up in, well, actually 4 up in Rockefeller. So,
Let me have a question first. So, in instances where you're doing summonses as opposed to warnings, are these people that have been warned before, or what is your protocol? Or otherwise, you know them to be repeat
I
offenders?
agree.
Yeah.
Actually, these are residents that, know the rules. It's not somebody that's visiting or anything else like that. They're sitting there chit chatting amongst each other, 2 of them with their dogs off the leash right on the lawn. Okay, in, I think one case where there was 2 of them on the lawn was actually, they had opened the gate where the lawns was blocked off. and had them in that, which made it
The
easy.
fence part of it, like the, what they have to protect it.
Right, to protect the lawn. So, I mean, that was an easy grab because you're not, unless you're gonna jump over the fence, I mean,
And then,
Justine, go ahead.
so I just want to make a note, and this kind of goes through our conversations of what we were asking for the RFP. But every night this week that I have walked in the dark or looked out the window on West Thames Park, I can't quite see Rector to see if there's dogs or not. Every night, starting from dusk till about 10 o'clock PM, there is always, not the same dog. They don't last there more than a half hour, that long. There's always a different dog with a different person running on the,
asphalt.
thank you, that, the fake grass.
Okay,
And
the AstroTurf.
AstroTurf, yes, and it's like, do I call? No, I don't, I'm just done. I'm done calling because I'm infuriated.
Well, look, I'm trying to work with the police department to speed up,
Getting more SPOs.
right, my staff, because we do have applications in, okay, and we're waiting
I
to
know,
get the contact. So that's part of my issue. I only have 3.
I know.
Okay, so, not to say exactly where they're spread out, but, I have them where most of our activity occurs.
And to be fair, the dogs, even if they are off the leash, which most of them are, and even if they are pooping and peeing on on the AstroTurf, that is not, it's harmful, but it's not the same as having a fist fight or having someone who's homeless. So I can appreciate that there's higher levels of safety that you're looking to address, and you have to take your resources as they are. So you need more resources, number one, which is what we asked for in our resolution last month. But, second, it would be great if people would, once it's dark, patrol, or just take a walk, take a cigarette break, go outside and see, because if they even, not to give tickets, but to say, hey, get off the grass, for next time you're gonna get a ticket. Get off the grass, and then see what they say and see what happens. But it's every night, they just don't care. They just don't care, and it's the same people. And I don't know if it's the people you ticketed, I never saw ticketing, but it's dark. When I see it, it's dark.
Hey, it's always around, look, we all know, after the dog has its food and you have your dinner, what happens, the
Exactly.
dog wants to go out.
And maybe they're letting the dog have that side.
6:30, 7 o'clock.
Right, exactly, and if it gets later, and then it goes till 10,
Right.
if it's nice enough, they're outside doing it.
Right.
But anyhow, that's
Picking up the stuff.
I don't stay long enough to see if they're, maybe a lot of them are
On the-
being
on the-
respectful, that they pick up the poop off the AstroTurf. And, but the pee's not
Right,
going
but
place.
Right, and even if they do pick it up, it's not 100% clean.
No.
No,
It's
so,
not even organic, so you're not having organic.
We know that issue.
Yeah, sorry, I'm done, thank you, thank you for your
I,
report.
I mean, I think it speaks to the lack of a location in Lower Manhattan where a dog can legally go off leash. I happen to be lucky enough to be able to take my dog out into the countryside and have her run off leash out there, but most people don't have that. Option. In the past, and I think even, well, in the past, before the construction in Battery Park, you could do it there. I don't know if that space is available now with all.
It is. There's an off leash space in the Battery. There's a dog run
That's
area.
back open again.
Yeah.
People don't know how to get there,
Well,
or so they say.
they gotta walk around the whole bathroom.
Yeah,
That's
like
what it
that,
is,
yeah.
and nobody wants to walk that far.
well, I mean, it may be something that, as your guys are approaching the people violating the rules here, say, hey, you can do this down in Battery Park. And somebody may not know that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
give them that piece of, but there's time frames, right, or
I
no,
don't know all
I don't
the,
know.
they can do the research as long as, but they may not know
that it's
that
possible
it's even possible.
there.
Any other security items, Patrick?
Really not, I'm getting acclimated again to the area. I am moved in with the construction team when they do the meetings, so I know where they're setting up and moving, so my team knows, to give special attention to that area, and we do check to make sure that everything is buttoned up, and if it needs to be caution taped off, whatever it would take to help caution it off, that, I am looped back in with Downtown Alliance and Department of Homeless Services. So keeping in contact with them.
Good.
So,
All right.
Thank you.
So, Nick, you're up for your report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Zach, while you're getting that teed up, or I guess just scrolling up to the top of what you have for Pat, couple of quick items just as we're getting ready there. So, Tammy, thank you. It's actually a really great flag about the e-bikes. Even while you are working through your community needs, separate on a separate track or a related track, it's really good for us to hear that, because out of what will be kind of certainly and frankly the challenges of construction, perhaps comes the opportunity to take a look at what's going on there and have some type of consistency with the e-bike. So we'll take that back as well, especially as we're kind of putting the final touches and precision around the construction staging and impacts. I think that's an important thing for us to factor into our consideration. So thanks for that. And then Mary Ann, you had emailed last week about, I think, a traffic light that was askew, the red, green, and yellow kind of hanging light that was askew, I think, on North End Avenue and BC Street. We got that over to DOT. Ed had answered right away, Ed Pinkar, the Borough Commissioner, and he said he was sending a team out. I hadn't been back up that way, but I'm hoping and assuming that's been fixed. I haven't heard more about it, but we were able to get that action for you, I think, fairly quickly. So thanks for passing that along as well. All right, Zach, if you can run up there to the top, our March report. You'll see there at the top of page 2. Very, very exciting to see. But that is a very recent photo of Wagner Park. Not all planted yet, obviously, but it is coming along. The pavilion you can see there is topped out. And we are on schedule to reopen this summer. I should have a more precise date for you in the next month or so, but this summer we are on track to open, as Ryan had noted earlier. And we will be having a series of events and happenings and programs in that space to welcome back online this beautiful new resilient public amenity. So very exciting to see.
Have you chosen a vendor?
Not yet.
Oh, no. Oh, so that's on there as well. It's okay. It's a good question. So Wagner Park Food and
I
Beverage.
see it.
I'll just jump down to that now, just seeing since you asked. We received multiple responses, now under review. I know Terrence was here to talk to you all a few months back. I will say we're kind of still putting some framework around what we can share, but we did want to commit to being back to you all with a discussion about that before the decision is finalized. So we'll look to do that in the next few months, but I don't have an exact time yet, but we did want to continue that conversation with you, and thank you for all the feedback so far. We got a number of responsive proposals and very excited about what that space may be. The Rector Place Tidegate installation, I know we touched on a little earlier. I'm always happy to come back to you with some news about turning space back over to the public. And as I think I had noted last time, as it is coming up, the parking lane on the north side of Rector Place is now turned back over. That was on Tuesday. And the work at the Rector Place street end overall should be wrapped up by the end of this month. You'll already see the footprint of the construction shrinking down. The project construction schedule is there, and you have Katie's information. I also linked her report from last month. Up top, the third bullet where it says anticipated mid-25, anticipated late 25, and then it has see the latest update here. That's a hyperlink to the presentation that we just went through yesterday at our board meeting. And in there, you will see not only that beautiful picture, but also, Tammy, you had asked about some of the area in the Pier A inlet. There's some pictures in that slide deck as well about the actual concrete that's there. So if you want to take a look at that, that's linked at the top of that page. Moving on to North Battery Park City Resiliency Project. Zach, thanks for bringing that up. Also from yesterday's board meeting, I actually took a screen grab of that. That's a more detailed view of the work going on at Belvedere. You'll see inset is a picture of the fencing around it. and then the description of the work. But bottom line up front for you all, this is preliminary site investigation work, which is a fancy way of saying we're doing pile testing. We are testing the stress load and analyzing the subsurface conditions to make sure that what we have engineered and designed actually fits with what we find underground. Sometimes those drawings are not as accurate as they would appear to be. You want to do some testing to make sure that what you're sitting underground is actually there. You're avoiding any key utilities, and also that you're engineering the project appropriately and not overbuilding it. You're not putting things in more places than you need to. So it's all part of the preliminary investigation work that goes into ensuring that the design is as optimized as it can be. So the work was completed earlier at Harrison Street and at Stuyvesant Plaza. That work happened over the course of November, December. The work at Belvedere is now mobilized and will be coming up. And then at South End Avenue at the cul-de-sac there, that will be happening through mid-March. Not to the same, to put your minds at ease, not to the same extent that the work at Belvedere is happening. The footprint of Belvedere is quite substantial, as you can see. The footprint at South End Avenue is smaller, it's a different type of pile, when what's appropriate for that particular place and what the design will bear there. The one at Belvedere is significant. We want to make sure, obviously, people are aware of that. And as Becky had very helpfully noted, some physical signs will be there as well, explaining what it is, and then with a QR code back to the physical web presence that explains in more detail what the work is and what it's for. The next thing I wanted to, and then obviously coming up, we have LMCR quarterly coming up next month, I believe in April. We have FEAS publication coming up in May, and then we have, I know this is near and dear to Tammy's heart and all of yours, and Alice as well. Zach, I have to get with you and the team, and we will get some dates in the calendar for, we want to do some pre-construction site walks in the spring. I will get with you and get some better dates about when that can happen, hopefully when it's a little warmer. Go ahead. Okay, the last thing I'm sorry, Zach, just at the bottom of that page, not to steal any of Pat's thunder, but I wanted to thank Zach and Jeff, Tammy, Justine, and the entire committee for the very helpful feedback on the Comprehensive Unarmed Security Services RFP. I know we discussed it last month right here at the committee. We were able to very helpfully yesterday at the board meeting have a presentation on that from Eric Munson, who's the Chief Operating Officer, and report that based on the assessment team's review of the responsive proposals, Allied offered the best value for the money, and also had, due to, I'm going to embarrass him now, but due to Pat's great experience and the ability to be able to staff up and for improving kind of that special patrol officer pipeline, they were assessed to be the best value for the contract. So that contract award was voted on and finalized yesterday at the Battery Park City Authority board meeting. And I want to thank the community board again and the committee specifically for its feedback. You'll see there's a screen grab of the very helpful resolution that the committee had passed last month, which included, better definitions about what the site entailed, what it didn't, and greater resources, which thanks to the advocacy of our board, you will start seeing that as soon as this spring. You're going to see an increased presence in the parks with more ambassadors on site, and Pat will be able to bring more resources to bear to ensure that Battery Park City stays among the safest neighborhoods in the city. Zach, next page, if that's all right. Just a couple of updates here on things I know that are near and dear to the community's heart. Ryan touched on this, but the padding replacement at the ball fields, the padding is being delivered this month, and we are still on track to be able to complete that padding by April and in time, knock on wood, for Downtown Middle League's opening day. You see the picture on the bottom right there is the padding from last time in September of, I think it was 2017, the last time we did it. So to stay here long enough, everything old is new again. But that's the last time the padding was replaced, and it will be replaced again this month and in time for April. And then the second part of that ball field work, as you recall, is the larger turf replacement work. The solicitation is out for that, and responses are now under review. That is going to be scheduled to happen this winter 25 and 26, after the lion's share of where the permitting is done post Thanksgiving, and then before next April's Little League season, April 26. And then there's a link in there to the presentation that the Youth and Ed Committee was very gracious to host when we briefed them on this in October. I just then threw on the next page a couple of the upcoming events that we have. Bindlestiff Family Circus is actually, it's hotcakes. These tickets are going, not that they're tickets you have to buy, it's free, but just in terms of people RSVPing to attend the event. That's very exciting. That'll be on Saturday. We have our Latin American film series continues next Thursday. And then we have Meet an Urban Naturalist as a kind of a precursor, a preview to Earth Month next month. And then the Lego Movie and the Spring Equinox Festival. Next page, and we're getting to the end here, I promise. Thank you, Zach, and members of the committee for your indulgence. This is there every month, but again, the First Precinct wants us to continue to remind folks about not handing your phone to anyone you don't know. That information is there and has been shared and will continue to be shared. Reminder about no dogs on lawns, which we did just discuss to some extent. And homeless assistance, which I know we also discussed, is in there as well, along with resources to which we can direct folks who need it. Next page is lost and found contact information, as we always have, and a schedule of our upcoming board meetings through the balance of the year. The last thing I would like to just note for the benefit of the group, on page 8, you will see is the upcoming Build-A-Block meeting. That is the opportunity for the community to meet their neighborhood coordination officers. We just got word, I think it was yesterday, that the meeting is next Thursday, and they're usually fairly quick, but this is for Battery Park City north of West Thames. This is Sector C, and it's police officers Uski and Nethaway will be there. And this, you know, they work closely with Pat and our Allied Universal team on quality of life issues, and they also cover areas outside Battery Park City. The First Precinct being divided into 4 sectors: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. And then the last item I have is, and I will note as an aside, that when we go into work or school or you know, wherever we go on Monday morning, I will happily note that it will be getting dark next week for the first time in a while after 7 p.m., which is great. That means spring is coming, and it's going to be light for longer. What that also means, obviously, is one of Tammy's favorite things, which is, hey, here's the upcoming list of permitted walks, runs, and events that are coming up in the city. I've listed the ones that are coming down the pike. None super impactful for now, but for the benefit of the committee, we wanted to make sure you had them. Downtown Little League's going to be conducting its practices as it normally does in Rockefeller Park on the weekends. And we have a couple of, we have a walkathon, and People Magazine is doing an Easter egg hunt. These are fairly small scale events. The one at the bottom is a larger one, and we still have a little bit more lead time there, but that is the 9/11 Memorial Museum's annual walkathon and run. That's April 27th. We'll get a chance to get some more detail around this as well next month when I'm here. But in as much as I had the date now to share, I wanted to let you folks know that's a larger event. That's about 5,000 folks, and that doesn't include street closures at the direction and in coordination with the police department. And that was it.
Resolution passed last night at committee about that event, and if everybody here will be seeing that at full board.
Yeah, it was
Great.
approved. That's fine.
They-
Yeah.
They presented last night. We have the slide deck and it was approved.
Great. Okay, good. So I'm glad that we, great unifying theory. We're all coming together and singing from the same hymn book, as it were. So long that's on everyone's radar, great. And then obviously any questions you all have now or whenever, I'm happy to answer, but I want to make sure we got those on your radar. When I'm back before you next month, I'll have some more events that are coming up in April, but those are the big ones on our radar for now that I wanted to make sure you were all aware of.
Tammy, I see you have your hand up.
You know, I always have questions. I'm so good that way. So Nick, one of the things I wanted to ask with Pat being renewed, and I didn't want to bring this up beforehand,
Yep.
is I really did want to talk about the homeless outreach, especially as we get to the spring,
Yes.
and have a really robust discussion on how we can do a better job of partnering to have, I think do you still use Goddard or Henry Street Settlement?
Scott,
It's
Goddard.
Yep.
Right. And I know that the Downtown Alliance uses BRC. So for
Yep.
me, it doesn't make a difference how many organizations are down here. It makes a difference to get more than one to engage with our homeless that we have in the neighborhood to try and get them to accept help to come indoors. So I do think that that's something that we can take offline, but it would be good to set up a meeting to have a discussion and understand the protocols and make sure that if they're unresponsive to Goddard and that's the company that Allied is using, that the next step is a call to whether it's the city out street teams, whether it's Downtown Alliance and BRC because of the partnership, but that we do more of a robust outreach as we come through the spring. Hopefully, with a nice early spring, warm weather brings out the dogs, the kids, the homeless, and everybody.
Okay.
well,
Come up to an alley.
Sorry.
Yes, that's Tammy. Let's set up
speak
some
to
time
that,
for sure.
Tammy. Every one of our iPhones have the telephone number to the Department of Homeless Services to the dispatcher. So anytime, we each ask the homeless person if, they would like any services. In the past, we've had, two actually people accept it. We've called the number. The safety ambassador called the number and also let the supervisor know. And to be honest, within 20-25 minutes, they were there with a car and the individual got in the vehicle and off they went. I can tell you that last week, two people from Goddard were walking around the park, looking for the homeless. The supervisor did speak to them and let them know where we do have homeless and what hours. And that, they said that they would be back in the evening. So I don't know if they had another team come back in the evening and walk through the park, but they are coming over and walking through the park right now.
I'm glad to hear that. It'd be great to have a little bit more of a structured approach. So you do, no offense intended, so you do know if they come back and really document and keep it going, because the only way we're going to help people on the street is if we get help to them. And DHS has presented to us many, many times about how many touches it takes to get somebody to accept help. And it's,
I believe the number is 21 or something.
yeah.
Right?
So
It's an.
exactly. So that's a big number. And we'd really like to kind of work on our side, because we are the park side in Battery Park City Authority that many of the homeless like to hang out in. But it also brings me to the conversation and question for you, Pat. Occasionally we do have homeless people sleeping in the medians of 9A. And I know that unfortunately that now we know the Battery Park City Authority is responsible for maintenance, and that I believe that's outside of your purview necessarily, Patrick, but we should have another conversation of how the average person who's maybe seeing this can report it. And if it gets reported to the ambassadors, not to have the ambassador's office say, oh, that's not Battery Park City Parks.
Liz, let them
Well,
call and say where the person is, maybe.
Well,
We've
just
already dealt with that. I'll call it the piece of the exit ramp from the old West Side Highway, that
Yep.
median that's there.
yes.
I forget whether I saw the people in there or whatever. But myself and the supervisor went over and spoke to the individual. I was also on a call with Downtown Alliance and Department of Homeless Services.
Good.
And made them aware. We notified the homeless people that were there and said, look, you know, we'll give you, you know, a day, but you can't set up in here for time to move. And then Parks, after a couple of days, went over and removed the mattress and stuff like that they had put in there.
Exactly. Okay. Awesome.
You
And
know,
then
it's an insurance issue for me because technically it's outside. But I made sure that I was with the supervisor and we kept it away from the safety ambassador. So, but that's what it comes down to me because my line stops where really the authority's property ends.
And in your reporting, and I was wishing Nick was still, I think Nick is still here. Can the Allied ambassadors do anything about the double, triple parkers on the north end and the placards parking in front of hydrants? And is there any help? I know the police don't want to police the police. I get it. But we really, we need help there. And especially as we come back to event season, all those trucks end up double parking, the security, because of where it is, it ruins North End Avenue. Period. End of statement. From Vesey all the way practically back to Warren.
Well, we don't, not even the peace officers have enforcement power where they can write a summons, a VTL like summons, okay? Vehicle traffic law, okay? We don't have those type of summonses, so we're set up differently in regards to that here. And
But they can probably move
the
along.
other
Can
end of it is, I do have the telephone number and the number is at the desk, which is, to the traffic department's dispatcher. And, we have called them and they've come out and, wrote some tickets. We're dealing with other issues. Nick had let me know something the other day about a vehicle. And we were on the phone to them and also on the phone to the police department. Police department came and wrote the ticket. And I was hoping for a tow truck to arrive before the person came out, but it did not. So, but
Yeah.
that's basically what we're doing.
I get it. It would just be highly appreciated if, when they're on their patrols, if they see the mess that is become up on North End Avenue, that they are able to report that in as part of their checking, even if they can't do anything, that control can do something to call. Because if we file a 311 complaint, it is closed before anyone arrives.
Right, I understand. I understand where you're going. So
What about
right now, I'm sorry?
about TLC vehicles? I mean, they're the plague around where I am. And in fact, there's a rule change being done now to increase the fines on that for parking on not only double parking, but also in front of hydrants, in front of crosswalks, all the places they routinely block. And River Terrace as well as North End Avenue. It's just a matter of reporting them to 311, and what the people from the TLC said when they came to the Transportation Committee is, why aren't you calling 311 more often and reporting them? Because we have lawyers that can find them. We can take care of it. We just need a photo sent in that shows them doing whatever they're doing.
All right. And then my next question goes to Nick. When you do the run walks, if you don't mind attaching a map so people understand the impact, when you list them in your packet, include a map of the run walk and the contacts. Of course, when they come to transportation, we ask them the same things we always ask. No bullhorns in the morning, not under residential buildings, et cetera, et cetera. But it would be good to be able to publicize the if there's trouble, please call phone number.
Okay. Okay, great. Good suggestion. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
All right, guys, thank you for your reports. We still have one last agenda item left, but you guys don't need to hang around for
You
it.
don't want to? Yeah, congratulations.
You're welcome to
again.
hang for it, but yes, congratulations.
Jeff, before I sign off for the night, and thank you again, I have one more spot of good news. This one is really going to make Tammy Meltzer happy. And as you know, whenever I have an opportunity to make Tammy Meltzer happy, I don't miss it. Okay? More detail to come, but I can at least tease it for now that we are working with the elementary and the middle schools in the neighborhood. So PSIS 276, PS 89, IS 289, to get some pedestrian managers in place during the school days, which I know has been a kind of bugaboo for a while. We've kind of tried to work with the first precinct and not first
That's
precinct,
great
but
news.
the PD. And this is in direct response to the schools, the PTAs, Tammy, Betty, and others. So more
The
details
Youth
to
and
come as I have
Education
it.
Committee, the
and
Transportation Committee, our budget
Yep.
requests. Thank you. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
not for me.
That's
It's,
wonderful.
Yeah,
you know, I've been asking since my kids were in middle school,
I
and
know
I've
it.
got one in college and two in high school. So
more,
it
more,
is
more to come as we
well
have it, but
needed.
I wanted to let you know that it should be coming down the pipe in the next little bit.
The pedestrians in the neighborhood will thank you.
Yeah. So thanks everyone, and thanks for the feedback. It's happy to be able to come back and make some, move the needle there.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much.
Before Nick goes away, and actually one quick second, this thing, it says ask the authority has no control over that. The other side. Sorry, when we go to our next item, I think you're gonna tell us you think it's not you. We can point fingers.
Oh, yeah. So one of our, district needs, items that we indicated, when we last submitted them, was to develop improved ways to target service requests in Battery Park City Authority parks through 911 and 311. And the origin of that was we've had instances where something has happened in a park and they call either 911 or 311 and the dispatcher has no idea where we're talking about. They can't seem to find the locations. And so we had asked it for improved ways to target those requests. The response, and this went to Department of Parks and Recreation, the agency does not support and cannot accommodate, and so on and so forth. And the explanation was this request should be directed to the Battery Park City Authority. So we will do that, or we do that. I don't know, I remember the discussion. I'm not sure whether we had any particular solution in mind, but it's kind of a wayfinding thing that where I think it was really the 911 more than 311.
Yes, like the fire trucks didn't know where to go, or EMS, then you'd call and say, I'm in Rockefeller, when I myself called, a kid fell off a wall. And you're calling 911, and I'm saying I'm Rockefeller Park, trying to the cross street wherever the Solaire was, and I'm like trying to remember the name of the street, if it was Warren Street or whatever. No clue. I think your guys came and actually
Okay.
called. And the Allied, I'm pointing to Pat. I think Allied folks had come over, and they're the ones who then they got on the phone and called, and then they were able to tell them where to go.
And the problem with 911 or any of those agencies is they're looking for physical address.
Yes.
Right.
If you give a city cross street, yes. Once you start naming parks, they don't have a clue.
Part of the problem seems to be
Claremont Park. Say Claremont Park over, and you name a section, they have no clue unless you gave the cross street where you were.
Even that, they
My-
have to build.
My hope is with 5G and the rollout of the free Wi-Fi by the Battery Park City Authority in the parks, that actually 911 can tag a cell phone, which they couldn't 6 years ago.
Hmm.
So that was two things that have been improved technologically
Yeah,
that ideally help.
right. Okay.
And then the other thing is,
go ahead,
Nick,
Sam.
there's the names of our streets do not correspond well with 911 and 311. So where Justine would call and say, I'm on South End Avenue, the post office has it as S End Avenue. 911 and 311 have it as different things. So having the streets, and there's one street in the north that is not what the street sign is listed on city site. So having that portion cleaned up a little bit, I think could be really helpful. And I don't know who is responsible for kind of coordinating that loop.
Okay, it's a good flag. It's probably a mess of agencies. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's, it's 911 has its database, 311 pulls from city planning. You make a good point about cell phone technology, though. I remember years back when I was at the technology agency, they had Annie Alley automated name, number information, automatic location information to be able to peg where a person's call was coming from. I think the challenge, though, was it would sometimes lead them to the cell tower that the phone signal was hitting, not the particular phone. That said, advances may have gone to the point where they can be a little more precise about that, but let me take it back. It sounds like maybe something Becky Beaver may be interested in diving into a little bit, but let's take it back. It's not us alone, but it's obviously we're not without agency here. I mean, it's our park, it's our property, it's all of your property. There have been kind of some measures along the way. I recall some years ago, you guys will see this when next you're walking down the Esplanade. At each of the street ends along the Esplanade, if you stand at the Esplanade where Rector Place hits the Esplanade, and you look on the pole right along the water, you'll see a little line that says Rector Place. You're at least to know I'm on the Esplanade. Where am I? Oh, actually, that's Rector Place right there.
Yes.
Without having to run back onto the street to find out where you are. So small things like that. But for folks who are not necessarily familiar with the neighborhood or who aren't responding here that often, which is kind of the double-edged sword of not being that a neighborhood that has that much trouble.
They don't know.
Yeah, but nonetheless, that's important. We want to make sure that emergency services can find where they are. That's an added benefit. The last thing I would say is having Pat and the team here is that they are often doing that liaising and are oftentimes the first contact that the emergency services may get, and they can help guide them in. But nonetheless, I think it's something that could stand to be improved. So we'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Sorry to hold you up.
No, it's okay. Thanks,
Oh, really?
everyone.
Yeah.
We're done with you anyway.
I have a question. When we had Department of City Planning come to talk to us about the mapping, they had all kinds of things about places that nobody else seemed to know. I wonder if they're maybe the group to go to.
Well, and based on what Patrick was saying, it sounds like it's not a unique to Battery Park City issue.
It isn't, I had the same problem in the Civic Center.
Yeah.
Why do you use a building address? It's not a corner. I gave them a corner. This was a chopped up piece of cement on the sidewalk on the very corner. I told them that it was the southeast corner of this intersection, and they said, what's the address of the building right next to it? It's a Civic Center. Those buildings are huge. And the address of the closest one was around on another block. So I gave them the address, but that it's still the concrete on the corner.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
said, we don't deal with corners. We only deal with the address of the building that there's someone. And they said they couldn't find it because it wasn't near that building.
Oh my
I
God.
said, it was around
In the corner, yeah.
Well, I think that is a
Silly.
request and we want to put into different agencies.
That's just silly.
Um,
Want me to intro this?
yeah, so tell us what we need to do with this information.
Yeah. So, you might remember some of these, some of your district news that put in for, fiscal year 26, which starts July 1st. These are the responses that the agencies gave, for each of these items. What we're gonna do with these is, one, put together a letter, as a response letter. And it's gonna be, the top issues from the board, from like each committee. This is obviously a smaller one because you don't have an agency tied to your committee per se. But
It's smaller because we have a state agency tied to us.
Like our committee, yeah, exactly.
right. This is city budget, correct? And yeah, right, yeah, a whole bunch of different state ones. There's three buckets basically. As you go through this, you look at it and decide, one, this is important enough that we want to add to the full community board letter. That's broken out by agency. So one for the letter, two, if it says, please contact agency for more information. You want to contact the agency and bring them into a community board meeting to ask them for more information on the thing, then we'll write contact and I'll track that. Last, if you just said, all right, we don't need to do anything with this from here, then we just leave that blank and we move on to the next item.
If it says something like, agency supports and can accommodate, HPD will engage and so forth.
That is a very rare bird.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So let's, yeah, but we want to keep that one on there and put.
Well, I mean, but what do we do
So-
to act on that?
Okay, so that one specifically, that's expense request 5 on here. I think, you could put that in the letter saying thank you and we look forward to hearing more on it. That might be a double, that might be a letter in the fall.
Yeah, and we do, and you make the call? You make the call? How does that work? Andy makes the call?
We'll bucket them by agency first, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll decide, maybe if it's, I think we'll probably do this later, but decide whether it's bring them into a committee to answer all of their agency questions. I think that would be ideal.
Mhm.
Or we could do it, through an email if it's.
I mean, this sounds to me like something that requires a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. This is,
Yeah.
I think a win on
Yeah, because it
the
hits
board here.
big rental building, Gateway Plaza, it hits the Battery Place buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge thing, and they're open to it.
Oh, did you see the news about LaFrac City?
No, I didn't see that. What happened?
They lost in court and they can't they charge water.
Yes, they were charging water at Gateway.
Yeah.
Well, they lost the court case at LaFrac City and they can't charge water.
We need to take that up. Yes.
Today or yesterday,
Where
it's
does-
done like the Gotham, maybe the Gothamist.
All right, I'll look for it. Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
good, because they've been charging Gateway.
Yes, they have
Yeah,
been.
no, they just lost a court case on it.
So I would say let's just start at the top, go through and we just kind of roll through them.
Okay. All right, so the first one, this is item, tracking priority 1 on over at paginated, this thing's paginated. HPD request, HPD to provide a study on federal, state, and city funds allocated to affordable housing community district 1, including BCCA funds and 5 World Trade Center. They can't accommodate the request. More information is required. Agency supports but cannot accommodate. They want more information. So it seems like one, somewhat relates to the
Yeah.
other one.
It does.
So it sounds like we would
Want to pursue it.
and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one there, which is the one we were just talking about, I think is really part of that same.
Affordability, so same concept and same agency. Yeah.
Agency, probably addressable in the same conversation.
And what I find interesting is that on the bottom here, they say, we say, of the second one, number 5, stop the conversion of buildings from rental to co-op in order to maintain rental stock and affordable housing.
Right.
That's in there too, and I love that, because that's what Tim was talking about with
Yes.
the BPCA also. Kind of figured a way to prevent it from happening. But I recall BJ Jones, when he was president, telling us was that there was something in the rules that BPCA had promulgated that said we will not take any more co-op. Wait, a condo conversion.
That's why they're switching to.
And that's why they're switching to co-ops. But, and he said, there's nothing we can do to stop it. We have to figure out if we can change the bylaw, whatever he had to
Yeah.
do.
This,
I don't believe anything has been done. So whatever we can do to get that to be done, again, why? To preserve and maintain the affordable rental stock.
Well, I mean, this is fundamentally a budget request.
It is a request, yes, yeah,
But HPD is implying that they may be able to
help us, which is perfect. So, yeah, we go with it, yeah. So, yes, once again, yes to this, right?
so it's a letter and a phone call.
The second one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 43, expense.
Yeah. To help improve ways to target service, that's the thing we were just talking about.
yeah.
And I-
So I think we're clear on that.
That's Becky said it. Is there a-
Yeah, it's Becky.
Becky's got that.
And we may want, and depending upon what we find out, we may want to resubmit it as a more general and not specific to Battery Park City, the parks location.
In general, yeah.
To go to, who knows who it goes to, but it may very well be Parks and Recreation, but somebody needs, maybe city planning or
Update the city map.
whoever runs the 911 service, like maybe, I don't know, they've got to update their system to locate requests that come from a park. It seems absurd.
Get it, and they don't have to trust.
Central Park is here.
Yeah. I would assume they have an answer that's better than we can't go look at a park.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you explore this, this is in our, budget request, you can carry that with you if that's helpful, Community Board 1 has requested this in the budget, kicked it to us, you could sort of play the bureaucracy against itself.
Well, actually, if any place that's not in front, not in a building or is not in front of the entry, they couldn't find the student that fell off.
Yeah,
like
and it
Stuyvesant High School. either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, that was behind Stuyvesant
High
High
School.
School, I couldn't figure that out either.
it's like, and water, Stuyvesant High School,
Is it backup?
yeah.
Well,
No,
and it may very well be an appropriate budget request, because maybe their system is just
Yeah.
set up. at such a
Yeah.
very-
It honestly could.
Yeah,
It's just antiquated.
so they may need to spend money to update the system.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I find it a little hard to believe that we're like the ones stumbling on.
Yes. One would think not, but.
It is, it might have just been a bad operator here and
Yeah.
there. or-
Budget request for more training of the.
Yeah, right, lesson.
Yeah,
In general, it should probably have quality of life as a general, because
As a
it is a
general.
big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, on the Eastern Esplanade or anything else, it's the same issue.
It is, it is.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
if you can help us find.
if you find like the right person or
Let us
people
know.
or agency or
I'll let you
office,
guys know.
they can kick it to us and we can put it in a committee meeting
Yeah,
and say, tell us what the issue is here, if it's an issue or not.
We can invite them.
yes.
Exactly.
All right, next one, we've kind of already
I think
discussed
we
it.
discussed it, we discussed it last night too in transportation.
Yeah, funding of redesigning, South End Avenue.
And what did we decide?
What we decided here is we need to, it's something that we need to work on as basically create such a thing. I mean, I think the authority is open to it, but we need to decide what it is we want to request.
Well, yeah, we want to, I mean, if we're gonna do it, they need to do a new study and blah, 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 and they're just not paying
Right,
attention
it's probably a problem for fiscal year 26, because
Yeah.
there is no program for them
Yeah.
at this
to
point
fund
to do it.
26.
That's right, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's what
basically.
we said, like,
No, Right, so they said do nothing about it this year, and we'll worry about it next year.
Isn't this fiscal year 26 we're talking about?
Yeah, which is coming up soon.
26 starts July 1st.
But isn't this budget request is it for 26 or 27? I can't remember.
For July
Yeah.
1st,
This is for 26.
yeah.
This is ones we put in with the fall.
but we talked about this in transportation last night, Patty, what was our decision?
The decision was, if it didn't exist right now, July 1st was pretty soon.
So we
So
can pick it
don't
up.
remove it from the budget, maybe put it in for fiscal year 27, but there was nothing to do right now. So as far as that bucket, it went into bucket 3.
Okay,
Okay, so for consistency, that's my point. For consistency,
Makes sense.
because it was the same. What?
okay,
We're done.
then you're done. Good work.
All righty.
Thank
The
you.
committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Mary.